to Scrollin, a podcast about the Elder Scrolls Online. I'm Ket, and this is episode number 11. Of course, feel free to crack as many jokes as you want, take stuff off topic if you want. Anything can be cut out, so we can get as weird or whatever as we want, and just edit out whatever doesn't work later. I always
we'll just be like, yep, might want to timestamp that. Okay?
I always heavily edit these. I at least cut out half of what I record, so it's all good.
It was funny you missed it, but when you were like, hey, I'm gonna run to the restroom here before we start recording, and Icy's kind of, after you left, Icy's like, hey, along those notes, I thought I just read about the new dye color. What was it?
So I was passing scrolling through and I thought it said blood urine.
Oh, I don't want that.
Yeah.
That's a rough one.
No, thank you. Keep that achievement. All right, so I guess I'll get into it. I guess we're already recording, so the podcast is already happening. So anyone listening, I guess you probably noticed that there are some other voices than what you're hearing normally. So this episode is going to be a little bit different. So normally up to this point, I've done it all by myself for like the past year. And it's been really fun. I've enjoyed it quite a bit, but I've always thought it'd be cool to get some other people in here. And make it more of a conversational kind of thing rather than just like a one-man dialogue or monologue. So I have some friends here with me, and we're going to do this thing together. Right, guys?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, good. Glad we're on the same page. So I think we'll just start with a round of intros just so people have an idea of who we're talking to. And I'll start with my good friend, Davius Starjumper. What's up, man?
Ready to go.
Sweet. So you and I know each other, I think, about 4 years now. We know each other in real life. Would you say that's an accurate statement?
that is accurate.
And I basically dragged you into this game, right? Like as soon as I started playing this game, I started like begging you to also get it and come play it with me.
Best thing I've ever been dragged into in my life.
Including your marriage and... Okay, all right, I'll take that. How nice. All right, well, do you want to just tell us a little bit about like what you get out of this game, what you like to do, and kind of what your experience has been like?
So, it's definitely changed. We've played several years now. You started a little bit before one Tamriel. I started a little bit after one Tamriel, but in the early days I was very, heavy into the PvE content. And then I don't know, I guess about a year. It's been 2 years. 2 years really switched heavy into the PvP content. But I still enjoy the PvE content, and I'll still do some quest lines and things like that with characters. But PvP is definitely the priority nowadays.
Yeah, for sure.
And I have to, get the plug in for Nords.
Okay.
Of being the tip top tier of races and Tamriel.
Nord Master Race.
I'd have to probably agree with that.
See, hey, look, we've already got something forming here.
Yeah. It's a great race. Well, I think then you're probably pretty pumped about this expansion then.
Oh yeah, this is prime time. This is prime time for Nords.
So you currently reside in Eastmarch. Do you think you're gonna have a new home now in Greymore?
I think probably so. I think they're probably going to introduce some. Well, I think they've even talked about the new homes in Greymore. I haven't taken a look or looked into it much, but I'll probably end up with one of those just to have an actual Skyrim home. I think that'll be pretty cool. I still have to get a feel for the quest, because from the sounds of it, it's very one faction of Nords versus another faction of Nords. So
yeah, I kind of picked up on that. Like, the Western Skyrim people they're a little different over there.
I've been hanging out with this Eastmarch side, so I don't know if I can switch sides. We'll just have to dive into it when it happens.
Right on. Cool. Well, let's move on. Next we have Grim from Grim's Forge Gaming. Grim, what's going on, dude?
Hey, how's it going?
Going
Thanks for
well.
having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I'm still getting used to like talking to people on this thing, so I gotta get the phrases and all that stuff. We'll figure it out. Um, so Grim and I met. I don't know. It was probably a little over a month ago. I was just like hanging out in Imperial City, Ebonheart Pact base. I didn't really know what I was doing down there, and Grim, you just randomly walked up to me and sent me a whisper and was like, "Hey, what's up?" And we basically have been friends since then, right?
Yeah, I was starstruck. I was like, holy cow, that's Ket right there.
Guess what? He has 120 subscribers. That guy.
Yeah, and so that literally happened. I saw Ket in the EP base, and I was like, that's Ket right there. And I love his product that he puts out on YouTube.
Oh, thanks, man.
And I was like, if nothing else, I need to whisper him and let him know that. And yeah, so the rest is history.
Yeah, and of course flattery will get you everywhere for sure. So we grouped up right away, and it was actually pretty fortunate for me because I'm basically brand new to Imperial City. I mean, I've been doing PvP a long time, but I hardly ever go to Imperial City, and it turns out that Grim is a bit of an Imperial City guru. Is that fair to say?
I spend all my time down there, and I level all my characters down there.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a kind of a, while we could run into outnumbered situations, and we do often, it's a smaller community, so you end up seeing a lot of people regularly. So yeah, I really love it.
Yeah, it's been really beneficial to me, just showing me the ropes, and I've already made like almost 1 million gold just from tips and stuff that I picked up from you, and um, you even put out a video. I guess that I should bring up the fact that Grim, you have your own YouTube channel. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's just Grimm's Forge Gaming on YouTube, and I just started doing that. I had a lot of these epic moments. Like in the short time we've been together, we've had a lot of epic moments, and Icy will be like, man, I wish we were recording that. And it, those type of scenarios just kept happening over and over again. And so people were like, man, I wish we were recording. And I like coaching people and training them, like how to fix their builds or optimize their builds or their rotations for PvP purposes. And so I do training and stuff like that at my home in game, and then we take it out and field test it. So
Yeah, really nice, dude. I go to your YouTube channel on a regular basis. Pretty much anytime you upload a new build video, I go check it out. They're always super interesting, super unique. Usually some kind of cool theme involved. Like you have a build that mimics Kratos from God of War, that kind of play style, and it's surprisingly like I don't know, pretty accurate to what you would think Kratos in this game would play like, right?
yeah, that's what I try and do. So we all know that there's a meta out there that's like Fury and New Moon if you're stamina, and if I think we are all in the same mindset that if we were to put that on, would we have success? Absolutely. But we get more enjoyment about trying to put together unique builds and unique sets and making those work. And so I felt that kind of went well with theming the character. Like I have a Witcher, and
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
Witcher build's going to be a lot of fun for next patch against werewolves and vampires. So
That's cool. Yeah. So anyone listening, if you've watched any of my build videos and you thought those were interesting, you should definitely check out Grimm's Forge Gaming. It's a similar kind of situation going on over there.
thanks.
Yeah, totally. All right. Last but not least, we have Icy. Icy, how's it going, dude?
Pretty good, pretty good. Glad to be here, man.
Awesome, man. I'm glad to have you here. So you've been playing how long?
I started in beginning of September 2019. So I think about like 6-7 months ish.
It always surprises me whenever you remind me of that because it seems like you've been playing a lot longer. I mean, you're already almost max CP. You already have some pretty solid PvP chops. A lot better. Like when I've been playing less than a year, I was nowhere near on this level.
Oh yeah, no, I have not missed a day since starting, and I'd say I guess since you're giving me some credit for the PvP stuff, I have to like just pass it back to Grim because I met him I think beginning of December, and I went from just strictly being a PvE person to he did a tour for the Imperial City with one of the guilds that we're both in, and then I kind of just fell in love with the whole PvP thing, and then I've kind of been like his Padawan to the Jedi Master for the last like 4 or 5 months now, and yeah, no, appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Yeah, very cool. So yeah, I guess I should mention that's how you and I know each other through Grim, right? And
Yeah, it's
just
kind of funny when you mentioned it earlier because as soon as I think like just later that day he messaged me, hey, I just met this other YouTuber. His name is Kat. He's a nice guy and stuff. So that was pretty cool.
yeah, it's been cool. And like yeah, pretty much ever since Grim and I met, the four of us have been grouping up almost every day and just basically annihilating everything in our path, right? I mean, pretty much.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
yeah. Cool, man. Well, I'm super stoked to have you guys here. This is a brand new thing, something I've been wanting to do for a while. You know, might take a minute to kind of figure out the format and the flow of things, but I think in general we have a cool dynamic, and I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
Excited about it.
Sweet. All right, so what are we here to talk about? We're talking about the public test server version 6.0.0. It's been up for a week now. Went up last Monday. This is for the upcoming Greymore chapter that'll be coming out in I don't know a month or two. And everyone has access. They sometimes they do like you have to request an invite or something like that in the past. This time it's just wide open. Anyone who wants to log into the PTS and start checking this stuff out right now if you want to. Now, if you do that, just keep in mind that the whole point of it is to give feedback. So if you see any bugs or you notice any combat balance issues, quality of life things, anything like that you think should be addressed, just type /feedback into the chat window. That'll bring up a form for you to fill out and just let them know what you think. Just remember to be polite and also specific, and it can really make a difference. It's really the whole point of this is we're all working together to try to make this the best patch that it can be. Have you guys had a chance to get on the PTS?
I've jumped on only for a short while. I've been spending too much time putting different builds together, and I was prepping to make an Emperor run at reset. So
yeah, right on. Yeah, no big deal. I jumped on for like 30 minutes a few days ago just to look around and have some sort of first-hand account to talk about here. I do have a few observations that I'll just mention really quickly. First of all, there's a brand new login screen. It looks really cool, very modern and clean looking. I like it a lot. There's a new character select screen, which I don't know. I think people might be split on this. It does look really nice, but so you know how right now your character, their background is based on what faction they're from. So the way it is now is they all have the exact same background, and it's from the new Greymore zone. So a little bit different there. Once I logged in, something that I noticed right away is that it seems to run really, really smooth. I don't know if that's just because it's PTS and there's not a lot of people logged in, and so the server is just not being taxed. I don't know, but I've logged into PTS before, and I've never had this like immediate reaction, like, whoa, this is like really smooth, really responsive. The frame rate was like really, really nice. So I'm hoping that maybe some of these performance optimizations they've been doing are really, starting to make something happen here. And yeah, I guess that's about all my observations.
What I'm hearing is a disclaimer. You're saying that this game's going to run perfectly after this update.
It's gonna be.
It's going to be
Take
perfect.
my word for it. They fixed the game, guys. They finally did it.
They fixed all of it.
Mission accomplished.
One other observation that I want to bring up, it's not directly about PTS itself, but more about the community's reaction around PTS. And I'm not really talking about content creators. I'm talking about just actual players on the forums and on the subreddit and stuff like that. It just seems to be a really calm, mild reaction to this stuff. Usually when a patch comes out, the forums just instantly get set on fire, right? And everyone's like, this game is trash. These devs, they don't play their own game. What the heck are they doing? They're ruining it. They're like, it's all this toxic stuff. I haven't seen hardly any of that this time. Have you guys noticed that?
Yeah, I think I've seen a little bit of it, but it's like, I think most everyone is kind of overwhelmed with like, let's sit back and see how this is going to work, because we're changing. We got a lot of moving parts. There's like several things that are changing, lowering of MPen, lowering of healing and PvP.
Yeah.
We're adding antiquities. We are adding all these new sets. And so we've got so many moving parts. Everybody's just kind of like, I don't know. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, it really is. It's like we were talking about this earlier before we started recording. It's I feel like the meta is going to be in a blender for a month or so. It's like it's everything is so topsy turvy. Like it's hard to even know if like my current build, like on my main character right now, is it even going to work this next patch at all, or am I going to have to do something totally different?
I think part of the calmness too is that it's unique in a new patch that all of the changes are, none of them are like specific class balance changes.
Yeah, there's almost
There's
no
really,
like class changes
yeah,
whatsoever.
and so
Yeah.
I think that actually kind of creates a little bit to the calmness, because everybody, everybody's bars and their characters and skills seem to probably be staying the same. It's just going to be kind of tinkering with these massive changes that everybody's going to be dealing with, and
Yeah,
then maybe a couple set changes.
yeah, new sets, then the vampirism and all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, I wonder just if part of the serenity around it is maybe this looks like it might actually be a good patch, and maybe a lot of people actually just feel pretty good about it. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'm feeling pretty good about it. Well,
Yeah, I'm just going through it like right now on the thing, and like there's a lot of changes where like say they're either decreasing the damage or the healing a little bit, but then they're increasing the chance of activation. So I mean that seems like an all right change, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, that sort of thing. And they're just offering players like astronomical amounts of damage in exchange for making yourself much squishier. So I
Hmm.
think this is going to be like an absolute glass cannon meta once all the dust settles, or people are going to just like double and triple down on the tankiness to try and compensate for all this damage flying around.
Yeah.
But
Do you think it's a little bit of, the player base is welcoming the change of the meta at this point, because New Moon and Fury has been the meta for how long now? You know?
yeah, I think a lot of like longtime players welcome change and they want to see things get shaken up for sure. I mean, I'm that way. Well, okay, that's basically an overview of like what this PTS is for, what's in it. There's a ton to cover. If you read the patch notes themselves, it's 20 pages long. It's so much. So we're definitely not going to cover all of that here today. It would be like a 4 hour long podcast. What we're going to do is we'll focus mainly on items and armor sets and that kind of stuff in this episode, and any kind of like combat ability changes, the new vampirism stuff. There's also some new werewolf stuff. We'll touch on those things briefly, but we're going to wait until the patch goes live to really dig into those things, because a lot could change between now and then. But the items, the armor sets, they'll probably be mostly the same, maybe some small adjustments, but I think it's pretty safe to talk about those. Um, okay, so first of all, I guess we can talk about these mythic items. I'm going to skip over. I know we're following an outline here. I think I'm going to skip over this like new zone section because we basically just talked about all of that. I think. Um, well, okay. Yeah, we'll just skip over that. Forget it. Forget it. And I'm just going to cut this part out that I'm talking right now. So.
Timestamp it.
Get your burps out, guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, even moments like this, like a lot of podcasts that I listen to, they'll just leave this in. Like they'll say like, "Oh, we're gonna cut this out," but actually they left it in. So who knows? I'll fiddle with it. So why don't we talk a little bit about this Antiquity System? So this is like the new thing that you're getting with the expansion, right? Aside from the zone content. Vampirism, that's not part of the expansion. Everyone's going to get that, even if you don't buy the expansion. So it's really just this Antiquity System that's kind of the new system being offered to players. It's like a treasure hunting mini game. It has two associated skill lines, and it's two components. You use one component of it to like locate a spot on the map, and then you go to that spot and you engage with the second component of the system to like excavate that piece of ground and hopefully find this unique treasure that's there, and that's the antiquity. And so the different kinds of treasures that you can find, there's these new mythic items, which are these awesome new one-piece armor sets. We're going to talk about those in a minute. You can also earn a mount. It's called a Dwarven Ebon Wolf mount that's split into 17 different pieces. So it's going to be a bit of a grind to get that thing, I think. There's some new style motifs, some new cosmetics, a new siege weapon called a Magica Lance. Have you guys checked this thing out at all on like any videos or anything?
No, I haven't seen it.
That sounds awesome, though.
It sounds awesome. I'm not sure what you guys envision in your mind when you think of the word Magica Lance, but I watched a video on YouTube of someone using it, and it wasn't at all what I envisioned. It basically looks very similar to a ballista. They like shoot you, like place this thing on the ground, and it shoots these projectiles. But I think it shoots 5 projectiles at a time, and it sort of like spreads them out, kind of like a shotgun. So it covers this like really huge, wide area of ground. And I think they come in elemental damage types like ice, fire, and that kind of stuff.
Interesting. So cold fire ballista with an AOE effect.
Yeah, kind of, and it shoots like
Conal.
yeah, it's kind of like a conal AOE, and the projectiles kind of come out one after another, like boo 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 boo, like that. It sounds exactly like that.
Yeah, so just copy
Exactly.
that.
That's BTS audio footage there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just playing an audio sample just then.
Pew pew pew.
Yeah. There are over 100 sellable treasures, over 50 new highly impressive furnishings. Davius, are you excited about this?
You know I'm pumped.
All about housing this guy.
Oh yeah. Got really into housing. I'm about 6 months ago, but it's been a heck of a lot of fun.
If you want to know the housing meta, just go check out Davius Starjumper on YouTube. No, you don't. He doesn't have a YouTube.
Just visit the house and game. Everybody's welcome.
Cool. All right. Well, yeah. I guess that's all I really wanted to talk about for the antiquities. Or go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna jump in on the antiquities. I'm actually really excited about antiquities. As it kind of leading up to it, we talked a little bit, Ket, about it seemed like past expansions have kind of had bigger announcements or bigger items, and antiquities seemed new and exciting. We both liked the idea of it, but it didn't seem. We wondered if it was going to be big enough to hold kind of a whole expansion on its shoulders.
Yeah.
But the more I've read, I've actually come around to thinking this is actually pretty exciting. These new mythic sets, being locked behind antiquities, I think is going to make it pretty huge.
Yeah.
It's not really a craft situation, but the fact that you can get these items only through this, locked behind this, I think is pretty exciting. I also, and I think we'll talk about it later on, but they're introducing some pretty awesome new glyphs that are going to be locked behind antiquities.
Yeah.
And so I'm actually really excited. I think it's going to be, I think it's pretty cool that it's kind of something that you kind of have to invest in and do, and you actually get rewarded if you put the time in. To me, it's kind of almost even reminding me a little bit of jewelry crafting. Jewelry crafting, if you invest and put the time in, it's very rewarding. You can make a lot of gold off of it. If you don't want to get involved with it, then you're just going to spend a lot of gold in it. And I can very much see antiquities being kind of that same setup.
Yeah, for sure. I wonder if these mythic items are bind on pickup or bind on equip. I don't know.
I would imagine pickup.
Yeah, I would imagine pickup. That's going to be crazy if they're not.
They would like crash the economy, right? If they were.
Oh my gosh, we would see like $100 million items hitting the.
Yeah, those Thracian stranglers. We'll talk about it all in a minute.
Yeah, I think the antiquities is the key cog to the change of meta too. I mean, if you were to take that out and just add the new armor sets, that's fine. Maybe one armor set like Stuhn's is switched out for whatever, but we'll still have a very similar meta. The antiquities changes the meta because now we're breaking up 5 pieces or we're breaking up monster sets, and creativity is going to become a thing. Now, I don't know what the RNG is going to look like on actually getting these items. It might be you actually find one of these and it's a real blessing. We'll figure that out. But the antiquities is the cog that is going to change the meta and break up 5 pieces of monster
Yeah,
sets.
for
So
sure. I like too how it's the actual activity itself is like a just like a chill, almost passive thing. You know, like you can just talk to your buddies, participate in guild chat or whatever. It's not like you're engage in a difficult boss fight or fighting against other players. It's not a stressful thing. It's just kind of like this relaxing mini game that you can play. I think when they talked about it on the live stream, they compared it to fishing. You know, but of course, it's a lot. It can be a lot more rewarding than fishing.
I
yeah,
also I just gotta give a shout out to the actual game, and that they do. I think it's really cool. They do such a good job of really not letting zones just completely die. They keep creating new ways to make you go and visit zones you wouldn't normally visit,
Yeah,
or go back to zones you haven't been to in a long time. And I
yeah,
actually think that's a really cool feature of the game that, a lot of games out there, once you're done with the zone, it's dead. You don't even remember it being there.
I agree with
So
you, and I know a lot of people complain about like the Sigic order grind. I actually enjoy it. It takes me, like you said, to these parts of the map that I absolutely wouldn't visit. Like aside from the first time I went there when I was doing those quests or whatever, I'll probably never see those places ever again if they didn't give me a reason to go there. So
so
yeah, this
I'm excited
Antiquities is
to.
another one of those. Yeah,
Yep, I'm excited to be out there and exploring the map again.
do you
yeah.
think this will have you going to Imperial City or have you going to Cyrodiil looking for items?
I
That'll be
tend to
interesting.
doubt it. I know there is one that takes you to Somerset. Like there's a certain, um, I think, emote that you can only get if you own the Somerset expansion. So I think that means one of these things will be located there.
Yeah.
Um, well,
Yeah,
That
because
would
I
be.
guess
No,
I
go
guess
ahead.
the antiquity thing, it's mostly like a PvE thing, right?
well, I mean, the rewards that you can get, like these mythic items, I think could be either or. I mean, I think some of these things have some serious PvP implications. The antiquities like system itself is totally like PVE, like an overworld activity. I think so.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah,
Anything
because
else
I guess
about?
my only thing is like I think that I guess since for me I used to be like mostly PvE stuff, and I think ZOS for the most part they do a pretty good job, I guess, separating between like PvE and PvP type things. Like there's no one quest that'll say, okay, here's all your PvE stuff, and now you got to do some PvP stuff. It's
Yeah,
just like a separate thing entirely. So I wouldn't anticipate having to uh, you know jump into like a Imperial City or Cyrodiil for to get a like antiquity thing,
yeah,
because
that's a
like
good
just for
point.
me, yeah, I would be like, oh my god, this is so overwhelming. Like I just want to do PVE stuff. I guess I'm never gonna get this kind of thing.
Yeah, and a lot of
Right.
players feel that way. A lot of PvE players like they hate the fact that they have to go to Cyrodiil to get the Sky Shard achievements and that kind of stuff. So yeah,
Hmm.
I imagine you're probably right about that.
Good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. Um. All right. Is that it for antiquities? Okay, I guess we can get to talking about these new armor sets. So we're actually not totally done with antiquities, so because we're going to start with these mythic items. So like I just said, these are a brand new category of, I guess you could call them an armor set, even though it's just a single piece. So it's a one-piece armor set, and you're only allowed to equip one of them at a time. So even if you have all of them, the game's only going to let you put one of them on. I think these are going to be pretty cool. And like Grim was saying, these specific items here are really going to be shaking things up a whole lot. Um, so okay, we'll get into it. The first one here is called Bloodlord's Embrace, and this is a heavy chest piece. And I'll just read the description here. Dealing damage with a bash attack places a persistent, uncleansable blood curse on the enemy. When you block an attack from that blood cursed enemy, you restore 685 magicka, and that can happen every 1 second. You can only have one blood cursed enemy at a time. So I'll tell you my thoughts. I think a lot of these mythic items are super exciting. This one is the least exciting of them, I would say. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
I,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna. I 100% agree with you. You read most of these items, and you get really excited about it. It's only you can only have one of them equipped. It's kind of you choose the one that. I feel like it should be difficult. Which one piece power, really powerful item do you want? This one is very easily dismissed when you're thinking about which items. And obviously most of us are all PvP, so it's definitely dismissed in PvP. even in PvE, I don't think this one even stands out a whole lot. And it's disappointing because I feel like a heavy chest piece is a really cool idea.
Hmm.
But this one it really seems kind of a tier below the rest of them.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Grim?
This to me says mag DK all over it, because sustain and ability costs have always been kind of a problem. Or for me, on previous builds, when I'm trying to run like the combination of high spell damage and high max magicka, then I'm hurting in the sustain field. This chess piece basically breaks down to 1,370 magicka sustain or recovery. That's basically what it is. As long as you gap close to someone and hit them with a bash, and then you're block casting your offensive bar, which you usually do,
Yeah.
your offense is block cast capable. So it's basically 1370 magicka regen. So I think for maybe abilities that are or classes or playstyles that are magicka hungry, that this might be, and block cast capable. Like, I wouldn't want to play this on a Magplar because you're stuck in the sweeps animation and you're not going to get the benefit from it. But
Unless you're a permablock Breath of Life spamming Templar, then maybe.
there are those out there in the world, and they are loving this.
My worry though is that an experienced player is, as soon as they see this thing is on them, they're just immediately going to stop attacking you because they know you're about to start, blocking their attacks to get, sustain. And so
Yeah, that's the thing in PvP is like as soon as you see a sword and shield, just pull up that block and hold it there. You just go find a squishier target. That's what I do. I'm like, all right, I'm not going to bother with this guy.
Yeah. But you put this armor set, let's say you were forced to wear this armor. You were going to put a build together built around this. We could put a build built around this thing and be a force out on the field.
Leeching Plate has a similar kind of thing. Yeah. All right. So it's not useless by any means. I don't know. It just seems like just like a boring idea for a mythic item. Like this mythic item, there's like so rare, it's so valuable. What does it do? Oh, well, when you block, it gives you magicka.
Yeah. I'd rather see it have a small AoE magicka drain to it, just a passive.
Yeah, see, it would give you the same kind of functionality, but it's like does it in a cooler way.
Yeah.
I feel like that the heavy chest mythic piece should be something to make you tankier, not necessarily sustain, but that's just me.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on. This next one, this is
I got one more thing.
Okay, what's up?
It looks like it looks like it might be a pretty good like PvE like tank build, because
sure, yeah.
when you're just fighting the boss, it's only focused on you after you taunt it, so then you'll have like a pretty consistent magicka sustain, and then you could do whatever it is that you're doing.
And PvE tanks need quite a bit of magicka as well.
Yeah, so I could see. I mean, I don't think I would ever use this set, but it sounds like if you're gonna use it, like tanking bosses for like infinite magicka sustain, that might be it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the tricky part to that too, though, is that tanks are pretty dependent on the 5.5.2 right now. So to break that up, is this gonna outweigh what the 5.5.2 bonuses are giving you for a tank?
Yeah, that's the question for all of these. Is like, well, which of my set piece bonuses am I giving up for this, and is that worth it? I'm wondering how many people are going to be like, yeah, I'm willing to give up my monster set for this or whatever.
Well, with the changes to monster set, you might have hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, maybe.
The lowering, lowering of armor values, and changing from max health to pen and things like that. So
yeah, we'll get into that here in just a little bit for sure. But yeah, monster sets across the board. It's basically rip monster sets, right? Okay, this next mythic item, this is the hot thing everyone is salivating for, the Thracian Stranglers. This is a light armor pair of gloves. So check this thing out. Killing an enemy grants you a persistent stack of Slode's Call up to a maximum of 20 stacks. Each stack increases your spell damage by 150, but also increases your damage taken by 2%. and then crouching or going invisible or unslotting the Thracian Stranglers removes all the stacks. Also, I tested it out. If you port to another zone, it also removes the stacks.
Okay.
So this thing is insane, right? Like if you have all the stacks, you have 3,000 extra spell damage, and you're taking 40% extra damage.
Yeah, and don't forget, if you're a medium person, you're going to get the plus 15% from the medium armor passive on top of that 3,000 base. So it ends up being 3,450. You know, if you added the 15% on top of the 3,000 base. So yeah, we're going to see 10,000 weapon damage builds.
well, this is actually I think just spell damage.
Okay, yeah.
So I think only Magicka builds are really going to be taking advantage of this. But also, I've seen people in guild chats and stuff theorizing that maybe this mythic item might be the thing that makes hybrids actually truly viable. Finally,
because
you can just be a straight stamina build with a normal amount of weapon damage for a stamina build, but then also put these on, and now you also have a respectable amount of magicka or spell damage.
Yeah. This one to me seems powerful enough to break up the 5.5.2 to be the one piece. And this thing is great for PvE and PvP, because in PvP, getting 20 kills, that's probably not feasible, but this thing's great in PvP if you get 5 kills. The amount of weapon damage, you don't have to think of it as 20 stacks. You get 5 kills with this thing and you're getting...
Oh, believe me though, no one's going to settle for the 5 stacks, okay? Everyone's going to have the full 20 stacks, because I'll tell you why. Let me tell you why though. When this thing says it grants you a persistent stack of Slode's Call, what they mean by persistent is you keep it indefinitely as long as you don't go into stealth or anything like that. So say you port into Cyrodiil, you go find some wolves or whatever, or go to a resource or whatever and just kill everyone there. You have all 20 stacks. You leave combat, still have all the stacks.
Well, I'm even talking about battlegrounds. This is great in a battleground. You start building up kills in a battleground. You get 5, 6, 7 kills, and you're only getting, even nastier and nastier.
It's going to start snowballing.
Yeah. And obviously PvE, you're going to have 20 stacks all the time. You're just going to be burning through, PvE content.
It's really interesting, and it's the damage penalty is pretty severe. It's a total of 40% extra damage taken, but you're getting so much extra damage output from it. I just think people are going to be willing to make that sacrifice, and that's also, it's so much damage that you're going to be able to find ways to invest in defense in your build to probably mostly compensate for that. Because even if you don't invest anything else in damage whatsoever, you just have these gloves on and you have a weapon equipped, and that's it. You're already looking at about 5,000 spell damage, right?
Yeah. You're going to be able to kill someone with this just by streaking through them. On a sorcerer.
Just a Mage's Wrath streak.
That's terrifying to think about.
Man. I mean, I think people are very much going to be willing to make that sacrifice and try to make this work. I think this, along with the vampirism changes and a couple of other things, I think we're looking very much at a glass cannon, super high damage, super squishy meta. I think that's what's coming up. Any other thoughts about this before we move on?
Scary.
Terrifying.
That's really scary.
This in a Sork's hand is going to be scary.
And combined with some of the other new sets and some of the changes to existing sets, we'll kind of put it all together later. I have kind of a thing written up. Okay, like what if this character put on all 3 of these sets and yada yada yada. We'll get into all that a little bit later, but there's some terrifying possibilities here.
This also, I should say, is terrifying on a Magplar. That is jabs with this is going to be pretty haunting.
Certainly.
Yeah. Well,
shield
especially
stacking,
while you're
shield
stuck
stacking
in
Sork also.
Yeah, shield stacking, or bomb blades.
Ooh, well, you can't stealth with these on. It removes all the stacks.
You won't have to. You're gonna, because Mistform now is toggleable.
Oh, that's right.
You could you can just hit just miss right into them and come out of mist and blow them all up.
Oh man, I didn't think about mist.
Yeah.
Boy.
Oh boy, man, there's going to be tons of vampires wearing these gloves right here. I think I'm just gonna do PVE this patch, guys. I think that's
Yeah. It's gonna be real
You'll have
scary in
to
those.
get it.
It's gonna be scary in those PvP zones.
yeah,
Yeah. We won't see you in PvP for the next year while you're trying to get these.
yeah. All right, I think we can move on. That's the juicy one right there. That's the one everyone's going to be shooting for. This next one's kind of interesting. These are called Snow Treaders. It's a medium armor pair of boots. So while you're wearing these, you are immune to snares and immobilizations that can be cleansed. But while in combat, you cannot sprint. So I think what they mean by it can be cleansed is basically it's not a ground effect, right? So if someone hits you with crippling grasp or bombard, and you get immobilized, well, actually, you're not going to get immobilized. You're immune to that. But if you run through, say, caltrops, I think you're probably still going to get snared in that case. Does that sound right to you guys?
I don't know. I mean, is moving through caltrops going to be similar to if you were in mist form and you could just truck right through them and it not affect you at all?
Well, I'm just curious because it says you're immune to snares and mobilizations that can be cleansed, and I don't think you can actually cleanse caltrops. You're just
there you
standing
go.
in it.
Yeah.
So I think if you're running through a ground effect, that's still going to happen. And I don't know, I feel like you should be immune to those too, though. If you can't sprint at all while you're in combat, I feel like that's too much of a penalty to only be immune to certain snares and immobilizations, but probably most of them, like in a battleground, for example, most of the time you're being snared and immobilized by ground AoEs, right? There's caltrops and wall of elements and all this junk on the ground that you're constantly wading through. So if these, I would be willing to give up the ability to sprint to not have to deal with that crap,
Yeah.
But I don't think I would be willing to give that up just for what this is offering.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if this is gonna, all those people that heavily rely on immovable potions, like, is this something they're gonna be looking at? Or is this, or, those other builds that are just, there's a lot of builds out there that their regular speed is about, is fast enough to where they don't even need to sprint.
That is something I thought of, is like you could be a wood elf with like swift jewelry, medium armor. Well, I guess medium armor doesn't really matter, but with a bow, you could stack speed that doesn't involve sprinting, and maybe get something out of this. Yeah.
That seems kind of what these would be. That'd be kind of for those type of builds.
I could totally see
what
that.
I'm seeing from that.
Yeah, I could totally see that. All right, we'll move on. This next one, this is one that I am super excited about. I'm sure you guys can predict that. It's called Ring of the Wild Hunt. So it's a ring. So when you wear this, it increases your movement speed by 15% while in combat. And it increases your movement speed by 45% while you're not in combat. So that's awesome. So 45%. So Major Expedition gives you 30% extra movement speed. All right, and this is just a permanent 45%. By the way, sprinting gives you 40% movement speed. So this is faster than sprinting, and it's just active all the time when you're not in combat.
That's wild to think about.
Even the 15% when you're in combat, that's equivalent to 3 swift jewelry pieces.
I was going to ask you about that, what this compares to, because I know you run swift jewelry, and so what is this? And you could run the swift on this ring.
Yeah. So if your jewelry is all purple, I think you get 5% movement speed per piece of jewelry if it's all swift. So it's 15% total. So this is equal to that. So I mean, if they were gold, it would be more than that, but whatever. So my Stamplar is a roly-poly, fully speed capped build. She uses Bone Pirate, Impregnable Armor, and Troll King, all medium, well fitted, with 1 infused piece of jewelry and 2 swift pieces of jewelry. So I'm thinking my new build is I'm going to drop Troll King, probably do a 1-piece Blood Spawn or something like that instead, and then slot this ring. Still do Bone Pirate and Impreg with a 1-piece monster set. Slot this ring for the movement speed. Get rid of the swift. I'm going to do infused all across the board. So I'm going to have faster movement speed. Aside, I'm still going to be speed capped, but when I'm not sprinting, I'm going to be faster than I am now. I'm going to have more damage. I'm going to have better sustain. I'm just giving up that Troll King, so I'm not going to have quite as much healing, but this is a Stamplar. We have plenty of healing. So I think I'm pumped about and Stamplar is my PvP main, by the way. So I'm super super pumped about this setup here.
And with the change to Troll King, it wasn't that big of a loss anyways. You probably would have made a move a different direction.
Yeah, Troll King's getting nerfed anyway. So yeah, man, I'm all about like fast and speedy builds. Like they made this for me, you know.
I think that's awesome. I mean, I think that's the perfect example of this, right? Is that this is better than the 5-5-2 setup. You're gonna break that up for this, and it's gonna come out ahead. I think that's exactly what these should be.
Yeah.
And that one's doing it right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like I kind of like the point you were making. Like monster sets are just kind of an option now. You know, it's not like this is what your build has to be. It's just like, you know, there's all these different options. There's monster sets, there's 5-piece sets, there's arena weapons, there's mythic items, and man, you can mix them up in a ton of different ways, and who knows what people are going to come up with. Really cool. All right, we'll move on. That's the one that I'm super pumped about. We'll move on.
Yeah, me too.
This next one is called Malekith's Band of Brutality, and I think a lot of people are pumped about this one too. This one increases your damage done by 25%, but you cannot deal critical damage.
This is going on Kratos.
Why is that? Tell us about it, Grim. Why are you going to get into this?
I don't really rely on crit damage from Kratos anyways. So to increase his base damage by 25% is impressive, and it's not listed as major berserk damage. And so the Kratos build that I'm running right now is Titanborn and Unchained Aggressor. An Unchained Aggressor 5 pieces, when he breaks free, he gains major berserk, so 25% additional damage.
So you're for 50% additional
50%. Yeah. So I just picture him breaking free and then leaping on a Zerg, and they're gone.
Yeah, their characters deleted from the server.
Their characters are actually deleted from the server. They can no longer play them.
Zoss refunded their account automatically.
Yep. They go back to the main menu. They can't. That character's just not on the list.
It's just gone. Kratos killed.
Something I've heard brought up about this is monster sets. So monster sets already don't crit. So if you rely on, or proc sets already don't crit. So if you rely on proc sets for a lot of your damage, there's zero downside to this. They're getting nothing but a benefit. So that's an interesting thing too.
I see this being really good in Battlegrounds specifically too, because in Battlegrounds without CP, you're always balancing, what am I going to give up with the build, because I don't have CP to go and get all the builds. Mm-hmm. And so this easily lets you give up all, speccing into crit at all and just throw this ring on there, and you don't have to worry about crit at all.
It's interesting to think about because, I think the way it is right now, a lot of players don't really invest a lot in crit in PvP because they figure everyone's wearing impen. I really just want my raw damage to be really high. But crit resistance is getting nerfed this patch, so I wonder how that's going to pan out, if people are going to kind of start gravitating more towards crit, or if it's still going to be like more like of a raw damage kind of meta.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. Think about the trade out right now too. When you pick up New Moon, it has no max stat in it. It's pen, weapon damage, spell damage, and there's no max stats. With this ring, you could actually run Draugr, Hulking Draugr or whatever. Oh, yeah. It's all max stat. Or you can run Crafty Alfiq or whatever, Well, for this one, it would be, you could run either or, I guess.
Totally.
It doesn't specify the damage. So you could run a max stat and just get a flat 25% extra damage output. I think that opens up if you look at the Magicka DK builds that are running Crafty Alfiq and they're running Brightthroat's Boast, those two sets together, it's like just a ton of max stats, or Necropotence, ton of max stat, and you're relying on the max stat to increase your spell damage. That might be a viable option until you get Thracian
Yeah.
stranglers.
You can definitely tell why they made it so that you can only equip one of these at a time, right? Because if you had like Thracian and Malekith's band and the Wild Hunt, I mean, it's gonna be like absurd, right?
Yeah. You need to do a troll funny video though, acting as if like a funny video of here's what your player looks like with all these abilities at once.
Yeah. All right, anything
Um,
else to say about this?
yeah, I was thinking. So I guess you really wouldn't run this on like a Khajiit or a High Elf, right? Since they have those racial passives for crit chance and crit damage, right?
Um, I think it's just Khajiit that has that. I can't quite remember, but yeah, I mean that makes sense because if you're picking a Khajiit, if you're choosing it for their passives, if that's the reason you're a Khajiit, then you're kind of choosing that crit is like the thing that you're investing in there. So yeah, I think yeah, if you were a Khajiit and that's the reason you chose a Khajiit, then it probably wouldn't make a ton of sense to invest in this because it's kind of going against what your race is all about.
Yeah, I'm thinking probably like orcs since they have like I think increased weapon damage.
Uh-huh.
That'd be a really good
Yep.
combo between.
Dark elf.
Do you think this is going to be a set that doesn't show up in your spell or weapon damage? It's only this item. It's only going to be in the tooltips themselves, or not
That would
even.
be my assumption that your like ability tooltips would just reflect that. Yeah, that's what I would assume.
Oh, that's kind of how they do these damage buffs already.
Mhm.
You just see it on the tooltip.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
All right, we're going to move on to the last of the mythic items. I'm actually really excited about this one too. This one's called the Torque of Tonal Constancy. Really cool name. It's a necklace. So this one, while you wear it, while your stamina is less than 50%, your magicka recovery is increased by 450. And while your magicka is less than 50%, your stamina recovery is increased by 450. So it's this back and forth kind of thing. I don't know. Davis, this seems like a set that you would be interested in.
Yes,
Yeah. Do
I'm
you
all
want to
about
talk
this.
about it for a second?
Yeah. So just kind of your point was too earlier is that it seems like hybrid builds might actually be a possibility in this. This 100% I feel like speaks to that.
Yeah,
But
certainly.
on my main I run well just really there's so many characters out there that you have your main stat, but it's still nice to have the sustain on the other side.
Oh yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
this is fantastic for DK. I run a main that on the side I do a Magicka Templar tank, but this would be great for that setup just because I do a Magicka tank
Yeah.
for PvE content. This one just seems really fun,
It seems
and
like
it
there are a
seems
ton of
really
applications
rewarding.
for it.
Yeah,
Seems like
I mean
my.
even
Go ahead. Finish your thought.
well, I was just gonna say even on Magicka builds in PvP, it's always great to have stamina and to
Always.
have that extra recovery just constantly happening. I mean, I think this is great, and a lot of stamina builds for their major resolve buffs, they're having to use Magicka, and so you kind of always have to default to that, and so um, yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
think
I
this one's
like
really
stamina
nice.
builds could even like almost abuse it, right? Like you could just build it in such a way like, you know what, I don't need any magicka, so I'm just going to spend it all the time so I can have this stamina recovery constantly going. My first
Yeah,
thought is sorcerers. So both magicka and stamina sorcerers, they use dark deal or dark exchange. So think of like a magicka sorcerer. Their magicka gets low, and then they start using dark exchange to trade stamina for magicka. Right, and that's like the primary way they sustain themselves. And so they're spending stamina. Their stamina bar is getting lower and lower and lower. When it drops below 50%, now their magicka recovery shoots way up. So they go back to using their magicka, attacking or going on defense or whatever they're doing. And so their magicka pool drains, and then their stamina recovery shoots way up, and they can go back to trading stamina back for magicka. And then Stam Sorks, they do the opposite of that with the Dark Deal, right? They're trading magic over stamina all the time, and this would work exactly the same way for them.
Yeah. That's gonna make sorcerer class pretty scary.
Yeah.
That right there.
Oh yeah. I also
well, I
could
think
see like a stamina Nightblade making good use out of this too, because they rely on magicka quite a bit.
I think you make a really good point about stamina classes kind of abusing this. Is that a lot of those stamina classes out there for that major resolve buff, they can just burn right through. Just maybe spam that twice so that you have that stamina recovery up. You could almost probably have that up.
Or just focus your build around it so that you just don't need to have magicka. So just spam your spam your armor buff until your magicka bar is totally empty,
Yep.
and then now you have this
Yeah, and then
crazy sustain.
you just have that. Yeah,
Yeah.
you just have that stamina recovery.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. I picture this. It might be a really nice staple for a lot of BG builds.
Oh yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely see this one making it on some builds for sure. I like this a lot. All right, that's it for the mythic items. I had too much coffee. I need a quick restroom break, guys. So give me just 1 second. I'll be back. All right. Well, that's all the mythic items. So we can get into these new overland sets that you'll be able to get from the new zone here. There are 3 of them. We'll start with this light armor set called Winter's Respite. So this set gives you Magicka Recovery, Max Magicka, and Max Magicka, and then the 5-piece bonus. Casting abilities that leave an effect on the ground will create a circle of healing frost for 10 seconds, and your allies restore 2,358 health every 1 second while standing inside the circle, and that can happen every 10 seconds. So it seems like a pretty strong healing set. Basically 100% uptime on an AoE 2k heal over time.
What's that going to look like with paired with Heaty's Hearth?
Well, that's a great question because there's some key information missing from this description. So it's hard to answer that because how big is this circle? I think is the the question I want to know.
Yeah.
Because that sounds amazing if it's like a 10-meter big circle or something like that. But it would be really lame if it's only like a 5-meter circle. So I feel like I need to know that before I know if the set is even any good or not.
Yeah.
So,
To me, this I'm not super intrigued by it, but to me this would best go on a Magplar healer because as soon as you throw extended ritual down, if I'm reading this right, it's just going to double down every time you throw an extended ritual down.
yeah, I think it would. I think it would work really well on my Warden healer. She basically has nothing but like ground AOE hots.
Good point too.
So I think it would stack really, really nicely with that if it's a decent sized circle. So I'm definitely going to be keeping my eyes open and see if it's a good sized circle. I honestly might try to work it into a build because that a constant 100% uptime on a 2300 hot seems pretty nice.
I'm thinking I have a strange feeling. I mean, I don't think it's gonna be 28 meters like the ritual, but I think it might be like a Grothdar like AoE radius, or maybe the Chokethorn little totem heal. I think it might be like that kind of
Yeah, I'm hoping it's at least as big as
radius.
Healing Springs, right? The Resto Staff ability, that circle. I'm hoping it's at least that big. I think that's like 8 or 10 meters.
For a gear set.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty big, man. even that one sounds pretty big.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I hope it's big enough to be good. That's all.
What's it look like on a damage dealing type build, like a Magplar, or not a Magplar, a Mag DK, and you're laying down your elemental blockade or something? Does it need to be? It doesn't specify that it needs. I know you'll be doubling down if it's a healing effect, but
right. Yeah, it could be like if you're really damage focused, and this could be like your defense solution.
Yeah.
Oh, so I guess if you threw the caltrops down, like that would also meet this requirement, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Or if you're a Magicka Warden and you do the ice on the ground, that's stuns everybody. Like you're offensive based and you don't have a lot of healing in your kit. This kind of supplements that.
And it's a circle of healing frost, so it certainly thematically suits the Warden.
Cool idea.
Yeah, I like it. If it's a good sized circle, I honestly might just farm a set of it and keep it in the inventory just in case. Keep it in the bank.
I wouldn't be surprised if this got like somewhat nerfed, because I would anticipate it, getting the Daedric Trickery. It's like active for 10 seconds, and then you have a 10-second window before it can cast again, and then same thing with the Thermocune nerf that they're doing now from 8 to 16, so you have an 8-second window. So I wouldn't be surprised if this the next patch after this got a 10, like if it was once every 20 seconds, so there was a 10-second timer in between.
Probably, if people actually start using this set, if it actually turns out to be good and a lot of people start using it, then that probably is exactly what'll happen.
Yeah, because like with the nerfs that they're doing now for the sets that do have an infinite uptime, I don't know why they would let this pass. This sounds like it should be 20 seconds, so that it's there's only a 10-second window in between. You know, so now we're gonna get used to something that's amazing, and then they're gonna nerf it, and then we're all gonna be pissed off. Like this should be 20 seconds. I'll say right now, it should be 20 seconds right now. That's what it should be.
Make it happen. Make it so.
Heard it here first.
Yeah, I mean, it seems a little strong, especially if it's a good size circle. The only maybe counterpoint I would offer is that, like the brand new sets maybe should be strong, like stronger than the others, just to give people a reason to even be interested. Even if they do nerf them later.
Yeah, because it sounds like it reminds me just of Thermocune. Like whenever I'm hit, there's a constant major defile pile on the floor, and now whenever I'm casting any ground abilities, now there's a constant healing circle underneath me. Yeah, no, this should be 20 seconds. All right, I'm done.
Well, I think it's important to notice that it lays a circle on the ground that doesn't move. I think that's a huge part to it, is that if you are running this, it obviously it can help you quite a bit, but other people are, it all depends on how big it is.
And you can't pick it up and place it somewhere else the way you can with healing springs. You have to wait for the 10 seconds, and you can't really control where it appears next either, I guess, probably too.
And then that next, if it gets bad placement, you've got to wait a whole another 10 seconds before you get before it happens again.
That's a great point. Yeah, I think Heaty's Hearth is probably going to be preferred over this set for the most part. Heaty's Hearth is awesome set. Anything else to say about Winter's Respite?
Sounds like Icy's gonna be using this set.
I mean, like I could see myself totally using this one, but I don't want to spoil myself. I mean,
Icy,
who am I kidding? I'm probably
Frost.
gonna use it.
It's Healing Frost. Your name is Icy. This is your set.
Match made.
Yeah.
You have a.
I mean, it sounds like it was made for me. It sounds like it was made for me, but then they're gonna nerf it like where it should have been.
So you're just protecting yourself. You just don't even want
Yes. Yeah, the set's overpowered. Am I using it? Yes, but I don't know.
All right.
I think it's gonna be pretty good.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. All right. The next one here is called Venomous Smite. This is a medium armor set. You get weapon critical. The 4-piece gives you weapon damage, and then the 5-piece. This one's another potentially really interesting one. So dealing critical damage inflicts Hunter's Venom on your enemy, and that deals 2,241 poison damage to the target and nearby enemies every 1 second, and that can happen every 15 seconds. Again, important information is missing. Every 1 second for how many seconds? And how big is the AoE as well? I feel like these are super important pieces of information that are not here.
And the effect can occur once every second. Is that per target? Because it could get out of control. What's the set right now that you have to get 20 stacks of it, but
I wrote that one down here because I wanted to talk about that with this set. Azure Blight Reaper.
Yes, yeah. So I see a potential problem or crazy builds there.
I think this is going to be a BG buster, this setup right here. So if this ends up being a fairly decent uptime on this, and if it's a fairly good sized AoE, it's a sticky AoE, by the way. It sticks to whatever target you put this on. Pair this up with Azure Blight Reaper, right? That's the one like you were just saying. You gain up to 20 stacks when you deal dot damage, which if it's a dot build, you're going to get those stacks in like 5 seconds. And then that person explodes for 11,000 AoE damage. And meanwhile, this thing is just pulsating 2,241 damage every 1 second to that person, everyone around them. So you're just going to walk up to a group and just spam acid spray on everyone a whole bunch of times, and they're all going to explode.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I can't wait. This is going to be
Yeah.
great.
Well, and also, acid spray applies a dot to everyone that it hits. And if I'm reading this right, this can apply to every target that you hit. So if you shoot acid spray at 4 people, they're all going to get this 2K pulsating AOE dot that's going to be overlapping on each other. It's going to be dirty. It's going to be real dirty.
Yeah, that combination, because there are videos out there of Azerblight doing over 1 million DPS on trash pulls and group pulls and stuff like that. You put that with this, and it's good night.
Yeah, especially, I mean, I'm thinking in BGs, what does everyone say pretty much every match you're in? Stay with the group, stay close. The teams that are successful are the ones that do that. And this is just going to be a hard counter against that strategy. And it's just going to be like, all right, you want to stay close? Take some of this. Maybe you're a warden, you're throwing some sub assault in behind it as well. It's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking that might be like a 3 to 5 meter radius. If for how much potential damage it might be able to do.
Yeah.
Just all boils down to how long that effect's going to last. That's that could make this an amazing set, or it could make it a set that nobody even looks at.
Yeah, exactly. How long and how big is the AoE? This set is either amazing or it sucks or it's somewhere in the middle. We really don't know. All right.
Yeah, and I guess depending on how rampant it becomes, maybe you'll start seeing people actually running cleanse more often for those group AoE.
I could see that.
Cleans, yeah.
Harking back to the dot meta not that long ago.
What's your guess? My guess is going to be 10 seconds on it, because it can occur every 15 seconds. So do you think
I can believe that? I could see 10 seconds.
My guess is 5 seconds, but maybe I'm being a little harsh with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I have a feeling it's probably OP is my guess, and it's probably going to be used a lot. All right. The last Overland set is a heavy armor set. It's called Eternal Vigor. It gives you magicka and stamina recovery, health recovery, and then the 5-piece gives you a line of max health, and also 337 stamina and magicka recovery while your health is over 50%. 1011 health recovery while your health is below 50%. This seems like another Davius set to me.
I love this. I was just about to say, this is one of my favorite sets of the new sets that I've looked over. I love this new thing that they're doing where it affects where your health is at above or below.
Oh yeah.
And I love the fact that you're getting diversity from one set. You're getting multiple things that you need at certain times. While your health's up, it's all about recovery. You're doing your abilities. While your health's down, a little bit of survivability to get your health right back above 50%. I think this is.
So you
great.
have a build that uses Ancient Dragon Guard, right?
Yeah.
It's a similar kind of set, right? It gives you a damage buff when you're over 50% and a resistance buff when you're below 50%. Right.
I think this pairs great with that. I mean, I think this is a perfect pairing for Ancient
Yeah, do you
Dragon
think you're going to do that? Like pair those together?
Yes. I have. I've already made plans to
it
try to
seems
pair
like
those
they're
two
made
together.
for each other, because like Ancient Dragon Guard gives you damage and defense. This set gives you sustain and defense.
Yeah.
So you got all the bases covered with these two sets already. So just whatever mythic item or monster set you want to throw into the mix, and you're good to go.
Yeah, think about throwing a Torque of Tonal Constancy on that build.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Man, you could have some crazy stuff going on. Man, that's a lot of like weird math the server's having to do too. Yeah, this seems neat. This seems especially like, I think if Ancient Dragon Guard didn't exist, I would be maybe slightly less excited about this one. I mean, even though it would still be cool, but just the fact that those seem like just a dream pair, like put them together, and it's a great, well-rounded build.
Well, and I think a great hidden little nugget on this build, on this set right here, is that 5-piece, that 1407 max health. I mean, the 2 through 4 is great with the recovery, but to get the 5-piece bonus as well as that max health that's
true.
That's great.
Yeah, it's very, very nice. Yeah, it's a really cool set. I feel like this is kind of a sleeper. This is one I haven't really seen a lot of people talk about, but it just seems like one of the just better, like just good, well-rounded. You could put this on just about any build or any stamina build, and it's going to work really well. Or no, any build, magicka or stamina.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the great thing too. Is Ancient Dragon Guard's the exact same way. So
Yeah.
it's such diversity, and you can be real creative with it. I love that idea.
Very
Or
cool.
you pair it with Shackle Breaker, max stats, both
Yeah.
max magicka, max stamina, and you get regen on Shackle Breaker and spell and weapon damage. So Shackle Breaker paired with that
Yeah.
would be
Super well
interesting.
rounded. Yeah, I like it. These overall, these are some cool overland sets. Just for something that you can just go buy at a guild trader or whatever, or just get out of some overland treasure chests and stuff like that. I think they have really done a great job of
That,
making some easy to get sets really attractive.
that's a really good point. All three of these sets, I think, have good usage, and I think they'll all three be used. That's actually really exciting. All three overland sets, I think, are
Yeah,
going to be used by PvE and PvP.
yeah,
So
cool. Well, that's all the overland sets. Next up, we have three new crafted sets, and the first one, this is the biggie, guys. All right, Stuhn's
boy.
favor. Oh boy. All right. So the 2-piece gives us weapon and spell damage. The 3-piece gives us physical and spell penetration. The 4-piece gives us yet again weapon and spell damage. And then the 5-piece, man, I don't even know if I want to read this. Increase.
duck and cover, duck and cover.
Increase your physical and spell penetration by 13,355 against off-balance targets. What are you guys' thoughts about 13,355 penetration against off-balance enemies? Let's start with Grim. Grim, what do you think?
I'm watching other content creators, and they're doing a really good job with testing this right now. And right now, this is coming in 17. If you were to take a mall, for this or a mall for new moons, this is performing 17%. It's doing 17% more damage than new moon.
Wow.
And
outrageous.
that's scary. And skilled PvPers don't have a problem getting their target off balance. So I think this is going to be an example of seeing people absolutely deleted.
Absolutely deleted. Yes.
Yeah. Take flight. Goodbye.
I mean, so we have Dizzying Swing, sets people off balance. Templars have Toppling Charge. Wardens have Cliff Racer. Dragon Knights have Flame Lash. Nightblades have Surprise Attack. There's the Champion Point Tactician passive. Am I missing anything? There's lots of ways to set people off balance, right? I think basically everyone is wearing this set. This is the meta set next patch right here.
Yeah.
Probably this.
It's scary.
Fury, New Moon Acolyte, Baylorg is getting a bit of a rework. That's probably going to be in there, or possibly that new mythic item, the 25% bonus damage one. Absolutely terrifying.
As much as I was saying I liked the last set we talked about in the Overland, the Eternal Vigor, I dislike this set that much. I feel like that this is just New Moon Acolyte all over again.
Yeah, it's basically it's good. Why ever use anything else at all?
It totally goes against creativity.
It overshadows everything else in the entire patch, basically.
Yeah. All those overland sets, we said how great they were, how they inspire creativity, and everybody's gonna be changing it up. Any build created right now is gonna be better if you add this set.
Yeah.
And so I don't like sets that just take over that much, and that's kind of what New Moon Acolyte did, and this is seemingly doubling down on the power of New Moon Acolyte, which is just kind of terrifying, and I just really think it takes away from creative builds. I'm very against meta. I think creative builds, the if you can make those work and you find a little niche that makes it unique and still can compete with the meta, this just makes, and I think we're all that kind of style player, and this just makes that even harder for us to do. Is that going up against this, it's going to be very, very difficult to be competitive against this if you're not using this.
I think mission accomplished on their side. Wasn't one of the things that they talked about was closing the skill gap? This set will do that by itself.
Yeah, because if you can land 2 or 3 hits on someone, that's going to be all it takes.
Yeah, you've been playing the game for 1 month. You ground your character up to CP, and you throw this on it, and you don't know anything else other than dizzy swing spamming, and congratulations, you're killing people that you wouldn't normally. So they accomplished their goal of closing the skill gap.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way, but yeah,
Yeah, that's a great
that's a
point.
good point.
I have high hopes that this will change by the time of launch. I don't think it will, but
I
I
have
can
to
hold out
imagine they're
hope.
going to drop that penetration. Still probably going to be, I would say, at least 10K going live. I have to think this is going to get nerfed. Also, let's not forget that the two piece, or I'm sorry, the three piece also gives you penetration as well. This is a set that can be worn by Magicka or Stamina builds. Magicka builds by default already have 10K penetration, just just right out of the gate. Um,
And
it's basically, unless you're like fully like above the resistance cap, basically above the resistance cap, you're basically going to be standing naked in front of whoever's wearing this set.
Yeah.
Wild stuff. Wild stuff. All right. Anything else to say about Stuhn's favor?
I'd just say the next set we're talking about, that poor set to follow up that set.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about Dragon's Appetite here. All right, so Dragon's Appetite, it's going to give you weapon damage and then 2 lines of stamina recovery. And then the 5 piece is going to increase your damage done to bleeding enemies by 225. And then dealing non-bleed damage to bleeding enemies generates a persistent stack of Dragon's Appetite. They're all about these persistent stacks, this patch. Up to once a second, and after 10 seconds, you consume Dragon's Appetite and heal for 6,415. That's a mouthful. So basically, if an enemy's bleeding, you deal 225 extra damage to them, and about every 10 seconds, you're going to get a 6K heal.
Right.
Just really the most overshadowed set after following Stuhn's. It's just
I feel like this is the weakest thing in this whole entire package.
and it followed maybe the strongest set ever. It's just
I'm trying to like figure out why I would use this instead of just Hunting's Rage. This gives me 225 damage against bleeding enemies. Hunting's Rage gives me 300 weapon damage against every enemy all the time, whether they're bleeding or not. And this set here, Dragon's Appetite, is under ideal circumstances is going to give me a 6K burst heal about every 10 seconds. But again, at the same time, the weapon damage stat that I get from Hunting's Rage is boosting all of my heals all the time.
Well, I think it's important to mention too that heal's not going to be real easy to get, because you get the bleed damage. Your damage increase to bleeding enemies,
right?
But you only generate the stacks on or I guess dealing non-bleed damage to bleeding enemies. Okay.
But yeah, so to exclude that damage type though is still just like an unnecessary hurdle for this already struggling set. Like this is just literally no one is going to equip this armor set, unless except for players who just don't know any better.
Yeah.
A werewolf build.
Yeah.
I see it on a werewolf.
I can see that. But even then, I mean, would a werewolf benefit more from Hunting's Rage or just some typical damage set?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, I would have to field test that, but yeah, that's like you're saying. There's too many conditions, whereas you get it all with Hunting's Rage right out the.
Yeah. And there's no like proc or anything. You just have it and it's there.
And that's not even that strong of a heal. I mean, it's a pretty weak heal, and even doubling down on the weakness of it in PvP. So
3,200 heal in PvP.
That's nothing.
Super weak.
That's one vigor tick, not even.
Surely this set will be buffed before it goes live, and surely Stuhn's favor will be nerfed, right? Okay. Can we just ask that of the universe?
Let's hope for that. Hey, I'll give Dragon's Appetite. It's a cool name. Cool name for a set. I will give it that.
Good name. Dragon that's a hungry dragon.
Usually not a good sign if the best part of the set is the name, but
This last crafted set is called Spell Parasite. It gives you spell damage, spell critical, and max magicka. And in the 5-piece, whenever you deal damage, you restore 63 magicka. And that can happen every 0.25 seconds. So if you're getting the full proc out of this, which I imagine only a Templar is going to be able to do. I don't know. I feel like it's going to be hard to get the full proc out of this. But that would be a total of 252 magicka per second, which equates to 504 magicka recovery. So that's a
Yeah.
pretty good mag recovery buff. But it's like, how often are you actually going to be able to get all of that?
What's that set that I guess like whenever you do damage or something, it kind of like bonds you to the target, and it's with like a laser or something, and then it's just constantly doing damage. Is it
Oh,
like
you're talking
Zons or
about
something like that?
Zons.
Yeah.
Yeah, would that be? I mean, that sounds like. I mean, I guess how often is that bond when you're using Zons? Is how often is that procking?
I think it's that damage ticks once per second, I think. So you would, you'd be getting partial benefit out of this. And if you have other dots ticking and like AoE on the ground and stuff like that, I mean, it's definitely possible that you would be getting that, getting more than just one proc a second. But I just feel like the amount of times you're getting the full benefit out of this, it's not going to be all the time. It probably is not even going to be half the time.
Dot builds, I would
Yeah,
imagine.
dots.
I was
Yeah,
gonna ask
yep.
you guys with your mag DKs, is there any appeal to this with you guys? Because I know sustain's tough on them. With the amount of dots that mag DKs have, is there any appeal uh, with this set to a mag DK build?
I mean, if I tested it out and it turned out that this Sane was like way better than Lich or Seducer or something like that, then possibly so. That's what it has to beat, right? One of those sets.
Yeah. A magic warden as well. If you're putting your flies or fletches or whatever on, you're always going to be keeping the target debuffed, and that would be a scenario too, I guess.
Yeah.
What about Templars with the jabbing? Because
Yeah, that was my first point. I think like the jabs that hits 4 times a second, right? So that seems like perfect.
Yeah.
and I guess if you tie that with like overwhelming surge, I mean that's probably near like infinite sustain, right? And if you also put in that other set from the Mystic set, the is it Thracian? I forget the names.
Thracian is the one with the huge damage buff.
There you go.
No, not that one.
You just made the meta.
Yeah, is that just but
Spell
that
Parasite Thracian, guys.
that
Yep.
meta is just hitting the jabs button repeatedly, and on a Magpie, those jabs are going to be healing you. So that's actually a little terrifying to think about. Just unending jabs as it's healing and sustaining, just over and over and over and over and over.
Because the turning point on being able to spam sweeps, my main was a Magplar and Spartan, and the turning point is about 1700 to 1800 magic regen, and as long as your light attack weaving between your sweeps, you can go endlessly, at 17 to 1800 magic regen. So this gives you 504 just by doing your sweeps. So
Pretty nice.
It wasn't. I wasn't thinking Thracian. Bloodlord's Embrace with like overwhelming and this set here. If say you're or not, I guess even if you were like 1v1ing somebody, you would, and you're just jabbing constantly, then I don't see how you could ever run out of magicka. Because even whenever they attack you, you're gaining magicka, and then according to this, whenever you're doing damage, you're getting magicka, and overwhelming set already does the 33%. What the hell is that? 33. What is it?
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. I see that Bloodlord's Embrace that might become a pretty big dueling
on a Templar especially. Piece. Yeah, I was about to say that Bloodlords with this spell Parasite, it could be a pretty sweet combo with a Sword and Shield Magplar.
Yeah, and like for PvE, I think it'll be pretty good. Like even like anyone who's putting dots like on for a Sork or whatever, like on a boss, it's gonna be really
especially
nice.
Considering all the mobs and stuff that are typically around. In PvE, you're probably gonna get a whole lot out of this for sure. Right on.
It'll have a better uptime. It'll have a better uptime than Lich. Lich only procs when you're below 50%, right? This is uptime
25% or something.
25. Yeah. This is uptime like from the beginning.
Yeah.
Your potions are going to be back off cooldown, and you're going to maintain. This is an interesting set.
Yeah. Yeah, at first glance, it kind of seemed a little lame to me, but I guess since we've been talking about it here, now I'm like looking at it in a new light. Like, oh man, maybe is this the new best sustain set in the game? Actually, uh,
Well, maybe not with the changes to Amber Plasm.
ooh, I can't wait to talk about Amber Plasm. It's coming up. It's
Yeah,
coming up.
yeah.
All right, let's move on and talk about these new trial sets. Some of these are actually really, really cool. So the first one here is a Magicka DPS set. It's called Roaring Opportunist. Now, I think this is one of the coolest names of all these sets. I like Roaring Opportunist. The two piece gives you spell penetration. The three piece is Minor Slayer at all times, basically like every trial damage set. That increases your damage done to trial, dungeon, and arena monsters by 5%. The four piece gives you spell damage, and then the five piece. These all come in perfected and non-perfected versions, right? Depending on if you do the normal version or the veteran version of the trial. So the perfected version, if you have that, you get a line of max magicka, and then the normal five piece bonus. When you deal damage with a fully charged heavy attack to an enemy that's off balance, you give yourself and up to 11 group members Major Slayer, which increases damage done to dungeon trial and arena monsters by 15% for 10 seconds. And the target can only be affected by that once every 22 seconds, so slightly less than 50% uptime, but it grants that bonus to your entire raid group. So a lot of in-game PvEers are expecting this to replace Master Architect and War Machine. Those are two sets that they also grant Major Slayer to friendlies, but I think it only applies to two people at a time, and they can potentially have a higher uptime. But if you can have almost a 50% uptime on everyone in the raid group, I think that's definitely better. Any thoughts?
Are we going to see this paired with Stuhns?
In raids, probably.
You could say that about every set.
Yeah.
Right,
right. Insert here, paired with Stuhns.
Paired with Stuhns?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like for Grim and I, we make these build videos, and Grim, I'm sure you experience this too. On at least half the videos I put up, if it's a stamina character especially, there's at least one person that comments and asking why I'm not just using New Moon Acolyte. So I think Stuhns is going to just be the new that.
You guys are going to have to add disclaimers to the beginning of your videos.
Yeah.
This is my new non-Stuhns build. Check it out.
5 views, right? Yeah. And I think if you in the title put the new Stuhns build and it not have it in there, like you just use it as clickbait, like and that's the thing is there's going to be 1,000 videos out there of everybody running the exact same build.
Oh yeah.
And how great it is. And I don't think that we want to be that, So
well, there's just no point, because if that's what people want, like you said, there's an infinite number of those videos to go see. The meta gets established really quickly, really conclusively, and there's a ton of content creators to go find that information. So I feel like if I'm just going to make another one of those builds, it's not really worth the time and energy that it takes me to make these things.
Right.
All right. Roaring Opportunist. Somehow all these end up back to a conversation about Stuhns. I forgot that we were even talking about Roaring Opportunist.
I mean, this set doesn't appeal to me much, but I do think it's cool that the really, really intense PvE, trials and dungeon achievement guilds. I think this is really exciting for them that they have something new to aim for. They're all going to be going for this, and so I think that's cool. It gives them some rewards for this new stuff coming out. They're probably already making strategies on how and who in the group is going to start wearing these sets.
Yeah, I absolutely. At least one person in the raid, I think, is going to be like required to wear this set, probably. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm not much of a hardcore PvEer, so I could be totally wrong. But that seems like it's too good not to. Next one here is called Randhir's Might. This one is super, super cool. I'm actually really excited about this one. This is a stamina DPS set. It gives you 129 weapon damage. The 3-piece is Minor Slayer at all times again. The 4-piece gives you stamina recovery. For the 5 piece, if you have the perfected version, you're going to get physical penetration. And then for the 5 piece, it's a mouthful, so stay with me here. Dealing critical damage grants you a stack of Giant's Endurance once per second, 5 stacks max. I kind of did my own abridged version of this. Each stack of Giant's Endurance adds 100 stamina recovery, and then dealing damage with a fully charged heavy attack removes Giant's Endurance and grants you Giant's Might for 10 seconds. And that increases your weapon damage by 158 per stack removed. And you can't have both Giant's Endurance and Might active at the same time. So that's a big mouthful. I'm going to kind of rephrase that as though it's just a little easier to understand. When you deal critical damage, you gain these stacks up to 5 stacks max. When you have all 5 stacks, you have a constant 500 stamina recovery buff, and you just keep that for as long as you want it. You just have 500 stamina recovery now, and then whenever you're ready to trade that recovery for damage, do a heavy attack, and now you have 790 weapon damage instead of that 500 stamina recovery. And then you're going to start gaining the stacks back again as well. So this is so cool. This is both a stamina and damage set, and it gives the player the ability to make the decision in the moment which one they want as the situation requires. Grim, you and I were talking about this before we started recording. This seems like it could even be good for PvP.
Yeah, so obviously you could put this with Stuhns. Imagine that. But another setup that came to mind was running it with Fury. Imagine that too.
Sure.
Wait till you're full stacks with Fury. You've got the 700 weapon damage from Fury, then hit your heavy attack on that with this, and your weapon damage is off the charts. Then hit your leap. And if you were to pair those two sets, Yonder with Fury, and then also put it with the let me look for it, Malekith's band for the flat 25% damage increase.
Yeah.
Of course, you might not be able to hit you have to crit with this, don't you? Let's see. Dealing critical damage. So you won't be able to put this with Malekith's band because you're crit immune.
That's true.
So, but at least Fury with this, and then wait till you're at full stacks on Fury. Or if you want the full uptime on it, you put it with New Moon, I guess. So
it seems like it could work perfectly with a two-hander build, because it's pretty common for stamina builds with a two-hander to begin their combo with a heavy attack. Right. There's a two-hander passive that increases the following attack by, I think, 10%.
Yeah, follow up.
Yep. So this would just synergize perfectly with that. You're already starting your combo with a heavy attack, and that also is giving you this 790 weapon damage for your next attack to have that plus that 10% follow-up bonus. So yeah, I mean, in PvP it would have a dead 3-piece bonus, right? That Minor Slayer doesn't do anything. But I think it's probably worth giving that up because that 5-piece bonus is really nice.
I wonder what a Dawnbreaker is going to look like with a heavy attack, follow-up passive from the two-hander into a Dawnbreaker at full stacks with this and Fury.
Or Stuhns.
Yeah.
I think this is just overall a really cool set. The Perfected, adding the 1487 physical penetration, I think is huge.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of diversity, like you guys have said, and it's just a cool sounding set. I mean, this Yander is probably some giant NPC, and so you get this Giant's Endurance or this Giant's Might. Like, I think they just did a really good job on this set. Plus, it's it definitely has a PvP usage, I think, which is cool to see some of these trial sets still be appealing to PvP.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think overall they did a great job on the set. It's cool that it's in trial. It sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Really a lot of diversity. The Perfected is definitely worth going for. That's a massive.
Yeah, that penetration is nice. Yeah, and I love the idea of just giving the player the ability to choose which mode they want this set to be in. It's really cool.
And it's continuous, right?
Yeah, if you get the max,
The
if you get the recovery stacks, you can keep that forever as long as you don't do a heavy attack.
Yeah, so you could just kind of move around the battlefield with 500 additional stamina recovery
Yeah.
until you decide that you need to turn it up.
Yeah, when it's time to get that kill, just do a heavy attack, do your combo, and then you'll start getting those stacks again after the 10-second damage buff is over, and you'll get your recovery back.
That's an
And that,
awesome set.
Yeah.
yeah, and that five piece perfected, that physical penetration bonus totally makes up for the lack of a 3-piece bonus in PvP.
Yeah.
I mean,
Honestly,
that's
it
a
really
great
does.
trade-off.
That's a great point. Yeah, cool. Yandier's might. Yeah, it's interesting that that PvP people are looking at a trial set, like rubbing our hands together. It's kind of neat. All right. The healing set from the trial is called Kyne's Wind, Kyne, Kyne's Wind. It gives us Magicka recovery, minor Aegis at all times, so that reduces your damage taken from dungeon, trial, and arena monsters by 5%. The 4-piece adds 4% healing done. The 5-piece for the perfected version gives you an extra line of Magicka recovery. And then casting an ability or drinking a potion that applies a major buff to yourself or an ally creates a pool of Kyne's Blessing for 4 seconds. How big of a pool, we don't know.
It's always we
you
always don't know the size. It's such a mystery they leave.
So you and your allies standing inside the pool restore 508 stamina and magicka every second, and that can occur every 10 seconds. So 4 seconds out of 10 seconds. So 508 magicka and stamina every 1 second is equivalent to 1016 recovery. A lot of recovery for 4 seconds. I think that we need to know how big this pool is. That's what we need to know.
I love the idea of this set. I can very much see me using this, even on changing up I have a PvP healer main.
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea of this set. It's such a cool group buff utility, but it all goes down to how big the pool is.
Right. Yeah, I mean it's a great recovery buff that's giving you for sure.
Yeah, I like the whole idea of all of it. Again, I'm gonna say I'm pretty sure it's gonna be a like Grothdar range. Like just like 5 meters or 8 meters. I forget how big it is. But yeah, no, especially for the those super sweaty trial groups and stuff where they got things on point and stuff. That's gonna be quite essential. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
especially if
super
everyone's
helpful.
like optimizing their build, like assuming they're going to be getting some recovery from this, so they're not even building recovery into their actual damage builds. They're just stacking damage to the sky, assuming the healer's going to have them covered with this pool of Kyne's Blessing.
It's a great
Yeah.
point. It's a great
You
point.
know, think about this too. We have an ongoing theme here. It's geared towards damage. Let's take 3 categories. We have our damage category, then we have our resistance category, and then we have our sustain category.
Mm-hmm.
And so, under the sustain category, you kind of have the counterplay too. Like if you have enough sustain, then you have the ability to counterplay damage being put into you or whatever. They're putting a lot of focus into the damage area.
Mm-hmm.
And inside the damage area, they're putting a lot of focus on stripping resistances and eliminating the tanky meta, I guess.
Yeah.
And
A lot of penetration.
a lot of penetration. And then if you look at the resistance category, a lot of the monster sets and like things are being changed to where max resistance can be negated or be cut through. So resistances are less of a factor right now. And then there's so much focus put into sustain at this point, like tons of sustain options.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what they're doing right now is focus damage, focus sustain. So
Right.
if you don't kill them and burst them outright, they have the resources to counterplay and get back in the fight from a PvP standpoint. And that's what I'm seeing trending right now.
Yeah, I like that. I like that kind of being the dichotomy that you're choosing between those two things.
Yeah.
I've never really enjoyed playing tanky builds, so honestly, I think I'm going to feel right at home in this meta. Although it is a little scary, but I think I'm going to be doing all right.
Yeah. Is there going to be a counterplay window?
Yeah, 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 exactly. If I get hit by a 30K dizzy swing out of stealth, does it matter if I'm able to counterplay or not?
Yeah.
Uh,
And you start grouping people together with those capabilities, it especially lowers the counterplay capability, and fights could snowball very quickly
yeah,
out of control.
yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see how things shape up. Like a few weeks after the patch goes live, um, yeah, I think we'll probably like barely recognize this game. Just like the build diversity, and there's the different kinds of builds, and what this new meta looks like. It's going to be a different ball game. Let's move on to the tanking set here. So we have Vrol's Command, VROL, Vrol's Command. It's a tanking set. Gives you max stamina. The three-piece again gives you minor Aegis at all times. The four-piece gives you max health. The five-piece for the perfected version gives you an additional 4% healing taken, and then after dealing damage with a fully charged heavy attack, apply major Aegis to you and up to 5 nearby group members for 10 seconds, and that reduces their damage taken from trial dungeon and arena monsters by 15%, and that can happen once every 28 seconds. So this is obviously like you're an experienced tank. You know the mechanics. You know that some heavy hitting mechanic is about to come up, and your melee damage dealers are going to be in some serious trouble. So you anticipate that. You hit the boss with a heavy attack. They all now have major Aegis for hopefully for the duration of that mechanic, and they can keep doing their DPS and not die. That's what this is all about here.
So there's no range indicator here. So would it just be like, hey, we're all in the same area, we're all gonna get it?
Um, I don't know. My assumption would be it's a 28-meter area, and just whoever's closest, the 5 people that are closest to you in that area would be my guess.
Okay.
Um, it's a cool set. I mean, it seems like it could be really useful, and it's not a selfish tanking set, which is a good thing. I don't know how it stacks up against the current tanking meta. It seems like most trial groups, at least back when I was doing a lot of PvE, most trial groups, what they wanted from the tank is to help their damage dealers do more damage, basically.
Well, and the
Um,
wording on this one kind of makes sense because it's 5 nearby group members, so it's the tank, and then all those melee
mhm.
DPS dealers are going to be protected while they're up there near the boss. There'd probably be more.
I bet this will be needed. There'll probably be like specific boss fights, right? That like the tank will be like, oh, hold on, let me put on my rolls real quick. We're going to need this for this fight because this has this mechanic and we're going to have to do it. Probably not every fight, but the good tanks, they know every fight. They know all the mechanics. They know what, and like, some top tier tanks that I've rolled with before, they swap their tanking setup each fight. This is my tanking setup for this boss. Now we're going to this boss. I'm going to switch sets and so on. So this will probably be another one of those. Like probably some tanks will just have this in their inventory and whip it out whenever they think they need it.
You know how we commented on the silly math that's going to be involved in the game now, accounting for all the different ways to sustain sets and everything else.
Yeah, yeah.
Look at another reoccurring theme here, and there's a lot of things that are built around heavy attack. Imagine if they would have implemented the light and heavy attack changes while they were implementing all this. Like,
Yeah.
what the heck?
It'd be a lot. It would be a whole, yeah. Like, what even is this game right now? Like, how do
Yeah,
I even
completely different game if they would have
Yeah.
done the light and heavy attacks with all these armor sets and stuff.
Yeah. So anyone listening to this, if you're not aware what we're talking about, they did a special like test cycle that wasn't associated with any kind of content release. This was a few weeks ago, and they were specifically just testing this new idea with how light and heavy attacks should work. And they just had this idea and they wanted people to test it out. Turns out it was pretty much unanimously negative feedback. That everyone's basically like, please do not do this. And so they listened. They're like, okay, we're not going to do it. All right, never mind. Bad idea. Which I think was pretty cool. I'm glad that that's how they did it.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they had gone through with that, along with all this other stuff that's happening here, I feel like that would be way overwhelming. That even make sense of what this patch is going to look like.
Yeah.
just to stick with the theme, should we mention this set with Stuhns? No.
No, imagine this set with Stuhns.
No, this set with Stuhns, guys. The tank is gonna be. No.
That's the tank meta. Rolls command and Stuhns. Right on. All right. Well, I think at this point is a good point to take a little bit of a break, stretch my legs. I think I need another restroom break anyway. So let's just take 5 or 10, and we'll just make our way back here and finish it out after that.
Cool.
Cool.
You know, you're going to have high-level players that are running into a lower level player that's spamming Dizzy Swing, and they're still going to be a real handful because of their build.
But I guess I have like two things. Like one, I guess it's kind of like in those like fighter, like those regular like fighter games, like Street Fighter, Tekken, whatever. You got the one guy who's just spamming kick. That's all he can do. And like if you're and it's funny, like sometimes they'll beat the experienced players, but there's ways to beat it.
Yeah.
You can counter it and stuff. So I don't think that would be too much of a problem for the people spamming Dizzy Swing. But I guess in terms of closing the skill gap, so is it just that because there's so many skills in the game? You think it's just like they put too much sustain on this set that now people can get away with like doing too much with something?
I worry about currently. I think you kind of have to choose between go heavy damage or do I want to be a little bit more sustained? It's kind of hard to have it all. We're going to give those guys that are currently running 6K weapon damage and 2K stamina recovery, we're going to give them 8K weapon damage with 13,000 weapon penetration and a base 3K or 4K stamina recovery now. That's what I fear. We're going to run into those guys that are just absolutely unkillable and can turn the fight on its head in a heartbeat. That's going to be what's happened. There's going to be a clear-cut meta, and these guys, when you run into them, are going to be demigods on the battlefield.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and the Thracian Stranglers.
Mm-hmm.
Because I noticed when we're running around sewers, when you hit somebody, when we put the major and minor vulnerability on somebody, it's a noticeable increase in damage they're receiving. Both on PvE and PvP people that we hit with both of our buffs on them. So if you're at max stacks, you already have a self-inflicted major and minor vulnerability. And could you imagine, like I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if your Colossus just putting that on them if that did not already kill them,
Yeah.
But then say we debuff this guy who is fully caked up and caked out with this Strangler buff. So now he's almost taking 80% increased damage.
Yeah.
Like this guy is toast.
That's what's really interesting about this upcoming meta to me is like, man, there's going to be so much damage flying around, but at the same time, these people with all this damage are going to be super squish. Like it's really interesting to see how this is going to play out.
I mean, a sorcerer's mobility is going to be their and their shields. Now, as long as their shields take the additional damage.
Yeah,
too,
that's what I'm curious about. Do the shields take the extra damage?
Oh, you know what? Imperial Physique and Thracian, that would be pretty good.
Yeah, and Stuhns.
The Sorks is the Sorks are what scare me the most going this, because Sorks are already, at least, and especially in PvP, they're already at such a distance and they just melt you before you can get to them. And now they just seem to be able to, they're going to be able to double down on that. Yeah, like, are we going to be able to get near a Sork to take them down?
The one saving grace there is I think a Sork might have a hard time making good use out of Stuhns because I don't think they have super easy access to off balance. So that might be something.
Yeah, I don't know that Stuhns is the play for them, but the Thracians and then run
even Balarg with a meteor combo.
You can run an armor set. What's the armor set that your damage starts getting lessened as your resistances go up as you lose more health? What was that called?
Oh, yeah. Mark of the Pariah.
You could put a Bright Throat's Boast with Mark of the Pariah and that set, and Thracians, and you'll have you might have it all right there.
You just might have it all. And you have sustain with Dark Exchange.
Yep.
I don't want to think about it. All right. We're back from the break. So that's all of the new sets there. Also, a bunch of sets have been reworked. A ton of them, actually. Too many to cover here. I've just picked out a couple that I want to talk about. I don't know if you guys have some picked out that you want to as well, but we can if you want. But let's just start with these couple that I've picked out here. So the first one, hands up, guys, in the air. Amber Plasm's getting buffed. All right.
Wow.
The day is here. I'm so excited. This is one of my very favorite sets in this entire game. If you've never used Amber Plasma before, it's basically just a Magicka DPS set, light armor set. But the 5-piece bonus gives you 250 Magicka and stamina recovery. And in PvP, for a Magicka build, having that much Magicka recovery having that much stamina recovery and not having to sacrifice Magicka recovery to get it is extremely valuable. I was telling Grim this earlier, I have to resist the temptation to just farm this set out 10 times and put it on all of my Magicka characters.
Yeah.
It's just so good. It's so tempting to do that. So anyway, it's getting buffed. It's already so good, and they're buffing it. For some reason, I'm not going to complain about it. So what they're doing on that 5-piece bonus is, in addition to the Magicka and stamina recovery, they're also adding health recovery to that bonus. And they are increasing the amount of recovery for all three from 250 up to 276, which is a small amount, but considering that you're getting a whole new stat, plus all three of them are getting increased, and also considering the set was already so good. I'm just thrilled to death over this.
Yeah, I want to pair this new Amber Plasm with Spell Parasite.
Oh, okay.
And I want to infuse all the jewelry to spell damage and then run Bewitched Sugar Skulls for max stat. And I think that is going to be scary.
That sounds like that could work really well. Yeah. I use Amber Plasm with Shackle Breaker on my Magplar. That works really, really great. So, I mean, I'm probably just going to keep doing that.
I think this buff is great. I mean, I think that it's really exciting. They're really creating a lot of creativity with sustain.
Yeah.
For this, and this just adds to more unique creativity to find your sustain. There's so many new sets, and this set changing to just really find creative ways to find sustain. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, super cool. Amber Plasm, very cool. All right, and the next one I want to talk about is Vampire Lord, and this is probably on all you guys' radar. This is a vampire-themed expansion, and the vampires are getting some really interesting reworks that we'll talk about here in a minute. So I won't go over all those details for the vampire reworks yet, but just in general, generally something to know about what's happening with vampire is based on your stage of vampirism. Your flame damage taken gets increased. The cost of your non-vampire abilities gets increased, and the cost of your vampire abilities gets decreased. Right. So each stage of vampirism, 1 through 4, as you progress through those, each one of those effects becomes more and more pronounced. Right. So what Vampire Lord is doing now. So what it did before is it would give 400 spell damage to your vampire abilities and reduce the cost by 6% of your vampire abilities.
Yep.
Right.
So now what this set's going to do is it's basically going to amplify or magnify those stage 1 through 4 buffs and debuffs. So this set is going to make you take even more flame damage based on your stage of vampirism, even more cost reduction for your vampire abilities, and even more cost increase for your non-vampire abilities. So it's kind of, if you're a vampire and you put this set on, it's, basically forcing you to fully commit to playing as a vampire, and really going all in on that play style. Davis, I know that you had been talking about using this on your vampire this next patch. Are you still planning to do that?
Yeah. So I actually, as soon as I heard about the vampire changes, I actually went and grabbed up a set of this set, just in anticipation, assuming that they probably would make some changes or it would be good. But like you said, we'll talk more about vampire later. But it really looks like this new vampire really pushes you to kind of go all in on the vampire. The stages kind of depend on that, but this set only further kind of doubles down on that. And so I really think this set, good and bad, there's good and bad to this. I really think this set makes a lot of sense for most vampires. The bad to that is every vampire going to be wearing this set?
I think the people who are good at that playstyle, like they actually fully adopt the vampire playstyle, they figure out how to get good at that. I think, yeah, they're going to be like superstars in this set. Don't get hit with a Dawnbreaker though, or a Zons.
Yeah, you're in trouble then.
Yeah, just you're going to have to be super elusive, like always on the move. It's absolutely just going to have to be a hit and run, and I think probably the moment you stand still, you're dead, right? Unless you're misting. Seems cool. I like the idea. I like that it only really works on a vampire. It doesn't do anything on anyone else. It's kind of cool. Any other thoughts? Anyone?
I did the same thing. I went and I bought a full set of this, and with anticipation that the prices were going to jump up or something like that. And I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to throw together with it, but we're going to do something also.
I'm try to make something happen. Yeah, I feel like I would be really afraid of the squishiness there, with the flame damage, because everyone's gonna be running around with Dawnbreakers this next patch. So to counter all the vampires and werewolves, there's gonna be a lot more werewolves this next patch too. We're gonna talk about that in a minute. Okay, any other like 5-piece rework sets you guys want to mention?
I had a couple that I was just gonna make that I thought were worth mentioning at least a little bit.
Okay.
Comments. One of them being impregnable armor. That's kind of going with the theme of the changes. They're nerfing the crit resist.
Yeah. Now, in relation to that, which I was planning on talking about this later, but we can bring it up now. Players are also getting a base amount of crit resist added, as a player stat. So
Good point.
It's interesting. Like, I wonder, like, the total amount of crit resist that you're going to have. The thing is on PTS right now, that base crit resist stat isn't actually active. Like, they put in the notes, this isn't working this week. So I don't know how much that's actually going to be. But I wonder how much total crit resist, if it's going to be roughly the same amount if you're wearing Impreg this next patch. But I wear Impreg on a couple of characters, so that's going to affect me for sure.
Are you thinking about possibly changing from Impreg?
I mean, possibly. I think we have to wait and see how much crit resist we're going to be getting, as a character stat, and depending on that, is critical resistance going to be the thing that you really need this next patch? I expect probably it's still going to be like the best in slot trait that you're going to want to use most of the time. I think that's still probably going to be the case. They're also nerfing the M-Pen trait for armor pieces as well. But still, I mean, I feel like the fact is going to remain that nothing's going to kill you faster than a giant crit spike. Well, I don't know, man, because now we have all this penetration flying around and all this stuff, so maybe M-Pen won't even matter at all.
That's crazy to think about.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're running around naked anyways? Because if you feel like you're running around naked anyways, you might as well fit it.
Maybe you're just going to have to invest, in like mobility and elusiveness, or just straight percentage damage reduction, stuff like that. Okay, yeah, that's impreg. Any others, Davius?
Yeah, so the other one was Orgnum scales. I thought the changes to this one were unique. Basically, the changes is the set now increases your health recovery by 800 and armor by 6400 while at or below 60% health, whereas it used to just increase your health recovery by 50% while below 60% health.
Yeah, it
I
seems like
thought
a
this one,
significant buff.
yeah, I thought this one was interesting because it's kind of like this little unique five-piece set among all these others that's going completely the opposite way of all of these massive changes. Like this
Yeah.
one's kind of doubling down on tankiness and health recovery, whereas that's kind of I thought that one was kind of cool because it's really going against the grain of all these other massive changes.
I
So it
bet
caused me to kind of look at that one.
I bet that
Yeah.
one with Mark of the Pariah would be a fun troll build.
Mm-hmm. That's Orgnum Scales is, especially if you're in low BBGs, Orgnum Scales is one of the most unkillable
Yeah.
sets to have in low BBGs. They're just not able to put enough damage into you, and I think these changes are I'm gonna revisit this and level some low Bs using this again. But you're a demigod on the battlefield with this set. You put this and fortified brass together, and even after the nerf to fortified brass, are a juggernaut.
Mm.
That's a really great point. Me and Kat always joke about, and below and under 50 BGs, it's just like the Wild West. There's just everybody's running around. There's no heals happening, and it's just complete
I
chaos.
love low EBGs for that reason, man. I never
Yeah.
really try to optimize a build for it or anything. I'm just as wild and like unprepared as everyone else, but it's hilarious to see someone with like a quarter of a health bar for like 5 minutes, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
they just stick at that like 20% health, and you're just like, wow,
yeah.
they're still there.
And
Yeah.
you'll see these two people like dueling, and they like both their health is like barely there at all, but they're still struggling to like take each other
Still
out. You know, just
fighting.
heavy
Yeah.
attacking and stuff. It's really
Yeah.
funny.
I just picture the kind of a meme. You're standing on the flag, you and this other guy on your team, and he's at a 1/4% health, and you're like, "You gonna heal up?" And he's like, "No vigor, bro."
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And he's like, "This is all I got. I can't do any."
Yeah,
This
it's
is
like
me.
that's when like you're an early stamina character, but you have to use like your class Magica heal because that's just the only heal you have. So this
Yeah.
is what you got to use.
Yeah. Yeah. No vigor.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
You guys have any other 5-piece sets you want to bring up?
No.
I guess Robes of Transmutation got a buff, 1,000 more crit on the hot
Oh,
heal.
interesting. That's weird that they're nerfing crit resist, but then buffing that one. That's cool. My warden healer uses that set, so I'll take
Yeah,
that.
so yeah, that'll
That's
be
interesting
nice.
though, because it's the crit resist is for 5 seconds now instead of 20 seconds.
Oh yeah, so you have to be continuously healing them to keep refreshing that buff. You can't just
Which
get
isn't
them with it and
hard.
they can run away. Yeah.
I still feel like every 5 seconds you could probably still keep 100% uptime on
Oh
that.
yeah, as long as your teammates like I always think in terms of BGs, but as long as your teammates are staying close by, like as they should, then yeah.
What's the actual number buff on that, Icy?
Says 1,400 crit from 13.
Okay, so yeah, it's a tiny buff, not huge.
So I guess if I'm hitting somebody with radiating regeneration, so does that 5 second crit resistance buff just keep refreshing as the hot is ticking on that person? So it's like 8 seconds plus an extra 5, so it's really 13 seconds.
Yeah, I think
That's probably
so.
not.
I think
Oh,
every single time a hot ticks on them, unless it states a cooldown, then I think I would assume that it just refreshes every time.
So it just falls off quicker.
Yeah, yeah, it falls off quicker. So yeah,
Good
you
point. I
can't
wonder
like
if
get them with the buff, and then they can't go run across the map and keep that buff for 20 seconds.
That's a good point. I wonder if more people are going to run that set to try to be more, try to find protection in this damaged world we're going into.
Yeah, yeah, maybe so. Transmutation's always been an awesome PvP defensive set. I like it a lot, especially for no CP. I made this point in my Warden video, but even in no CP, critical strike chance and crit damage is pretty easy to get in your build, but there's not a lot of sources of critical resistance. So having an easy, just reliable way to give your whole team quite a lot of extra crit resistance is very, very valuable. Okay, well, we'll move on to the monster sets. Again, way too many to talk about all right now. And so I picked out a couple that I want to talk about. And again, you guys can mention some if you want. The first one that I assume we're all going to want to talk about is Baylorg. So this set, I think, has been buffed considerably. I mean, you guys tell me what you think. So it will give you it'll give you weapon and spell damage equal to the amount of ultimate spent rather than double the amount of ultimate spent. So a nerf in that regard. But it also grants physical and spell penetration equal to 23 times the amount of ultimate spent. So I think actually that's a considerable buff, right?
11,500 penetration if you spend a 500 ultimate.
Yeah, and along with a 500 weapon spell damage buff, which is nothing to sneeze at either.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so. Obviously, we've been making a lot of Stuhn's jokes, but for real though.
For real.
But for real this time, what about this set with Stuhn's? I mean, let's just take out anything else about the build. Just the 5-piece from Stuhn's, and this right here is 25,000 penetration.
Can I just request like a hotkey that just says, "What about this with Stuhn?"
Yeah.
I'm just gonna press the button.
It'll just be like the robot voice, like when you make your
Yeah.
computer talk. What about Stuhn's? Yeah. Yeah. Plus, your character's going to have some base penetration already. You know, if you have a maul or a sharpened trait, or if you're a Magicka build, which Magicka builds can use this and can use Baylorg and Stuhn's.
Yeah, I cannot wait until someone has Stuhn's and Baylorg and they hit me with a heavy attack and then take flight onto me. And as I'm rezzing back at base, I go and look at my armor and it's all broken.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you actually have to repair.
You have to repair everything. It's just shredded. Yeah. It blew the clothes right off me.
So
I will.
Oh, go ahead, Davies.
I was just gonna say I will say that I like the changes to the set. I am worried, kind of the same thing with Stuhn's, is the changes make it too powerful. But I like that they're adding the penetration because right now everybody's using this set mainly with Baylorg and Onslaught. You know, you hit the Onslaught gives you the penetration, and then you get the double damage. And so I like that more people will find creative ways to use Baylorg, and it's kind of going away from the Baylorg Onslaught pairing. So
that's a fantastic point. Is it makes Onslaught optional?
Yeah, it creates diversity. But that being said, I am a little terrified that maybe this is going to be a little too strong. So maybe it would just my take, but I would like to see it maybe be nerfed a little bit from this, but we'll see.
I would like to see that too. So I'm thinking of like a Magicka build that's wearing this Baylorg, Stuhn's, Thracian Stranglers. Like we were saying earlier, there's a ton of sources of off balance, so it's not going to be hard to get the full stack of buffs there. You're easily, for a Magicka build, you're easily, no problem, over 30k penetration minimum. With the Thracian Stranglers, you're going to be at least 5k spell damage without even speccing into spell damage otherwise. So, I mean, who is going to survive that? It's basically going to have to be, you have to kill them or they're going to kill you. Right? That's the only defense.
Yeah. In a much shorter window, because it's already that. Now it's whoever hits their number one button quicker.
Yeah, it's just a race to who can pull the combo off first. That's what it is. Yeah.
Is this PvP meta going to be, you know, like in Imperial City or Cyrodiil or Battlegrounds when you're up on a keep or you're at your starting point or in a safe where you're up high where they can't hit you? Is there just people going to be just those people just annihilating everybody down near them? Like no more base camping because they will annihilate you if you're near them.
They'll just light attack you, like 2 light attacks and you're dead.
Yeah. So you're saying AD does have a chance.
This is AD's meta.
This is the AD meta we're going into.
Rise of the snipe spammers.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I didn't even think about snipe spammers with this meta. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's going to be outrageous. Okay.
Can't wait.
Well, I think one way I'm consoling myself is I think my particular preferred play style is is kind of getting buffed. My play style, like my favorite character, like I mentioned earlier, is a roly poly stamina Templar. My main form of defense is just avoiding all damage, not trying to tank it out. And so, if that's the strategy, if the damage is 30k or 2k or whatever, if I'm avoiding 100% of it, I'm not taking any of it. So I think we're probably going to see a lot of people take to mobility, line of sight, avoidance as their primary form of defense, and not really trying to just face tank things out quite so much like we've seen so far. I don't know. What do
Scary
you
for
guys
me
think?
as a Nord focused player. That's a little scary for me.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
not the quickest, but we're hardy. But I don't know if anybody's gonna be hardy
Gonna
after
have to
this.
dust off your medium armor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get your your snare removal slotted, all that stuff. All right, we can move on from Baylorg. That's an interesting one. Well, one other thing I'll say about Baylorg is also it makes this set slightly less effective against players who have low resistance and much more effective against players who have high resistance, right?
Yeah.
So like it kind of goes with what I was just saying. Like my playstyle, my characters that I use don't use high resistance anyway. So if you're used to playing that way and you're already comfortable playing with low resistance, then you may fare fairly well in this meta. But if you're used to being able to just like hold block and just get in someone's face and tank it out, you may have to find some new strategies or really, really alter your build to continue being able to play that way. Next one, and this is a big one, Bloodspawn getting nerfed. It's finally happening. So they're reducing the armor bonus granted from the proc. They're basically cutting it in half. It's going to be 3,300, whereas currently on live it's 6,450. Big nerf. Also, the amount of ultimate that it gives you when it procs is now going to be 8. 8 ultimate instead of 14 ultimate. So a nerf, pretty big nerf on two fronts there. They also reduced the duration and cooldown to 5 seconds. I don't know if that's really a nerf or not. I mean, you're still going to have the same amount of potential uptime, so I'm not really sure. I want to hear you guys' thoughts on this. This is a big one. This is basically like the quintessential monster set. If you don't know what else to wear, you can't lose with Bloodspawn. Magicka, stamina, doesn't matter. Wear Bloodspawn. Yeah, what do you think? That's still going to be the case, or do you think people are going to start considering other options?
As someone who wears Bloodspawn, I'm actually excited about this because once again, I'm really big on diversity when it comes to builds and sets. And right now, like you said, everybody wears Bloodspawn. And I still think the set is fantastic for ultimate builds, and I love ultimate builds.
Mm-hmm.
I still think it worked perfectly for that. I think that's where, and it is minor, but I think that's where the reducing the duration and cooldown. So the reduction on ultimate is down from 14, so it's not going to be as much. But reducing that cooldown from 6 seconds to 5 seconds is you're going to get that ultimate just 1 second quicker.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
yeah, I didn't really consider that. Okay.
So that kind of helps with the reduction on that. So I think overall this is great. I think Bloodspawn was used on every single build. Now it makes sense to use it on ultimate builds. And if you don't have an ultimate build, then you look elsewhere, which is, I think, what this set should have been. I think that's what it should be. That's what it makes sense.
Makes sense because it's still the only ultimate gen monster set, I think. Period. Right. So if that's what you're going for, this is what you're going to have to use. But it's not just so good that you're dumb for using anything else. You guys, anyone else have any thoughts about this? Graham, Icy?
I think with all the other changes to the game, this set losing 3,000 resistance is kind of a moot point when we're adding so much penetration into the game across the board. Yeah. Like I don't think 3,000 resistance loss is going to break the bank, and yeah. like Davies was saying, lowering the cooldown on this to 5 seconds is fine. So I think you hit the nail on the head that before it was, why are you not wearing Bloodspawn? You know, now it makes it a little bit more, you know, oh, you're wearing Bloodspawn. Okay, that you have other options that make sense too, but you went Bloodspawn route. Whereas before it was like, why are you not wearing Bloodspawn?
Yeah,
So
yeah, totally. Right on. So,
Yeah.
and oh, go ahead, Icy.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah. So yeah, Davis made a pretty good, really good points. 'Cause again, I'm also not again. I'm a big fan of old gen builds too. So yeah, for me, I don't think I'm still gonna keep it on my my characters. So I am, I guess, a little bit bummed out, but yeah, I'm still gonna keep it just for the old gen. So
Yeah, most of the talk I've seen around this, like online and stuff, has been about this same kind of tone that we have right here. It's like, yeah, I guess kind of a bummer, but it makes sense. That's pretty much the attitude I've seen around on the forums and stuff.
does it? I'm no math. I'm not good with math here, but does it end up being more ultimate if you took a full minute? Because the cooldown's lowered to every 5 seconds. And so you're gaining 8 ultimate. Let's say you're taking continuous damage or it's continuously proccing. Do you end up getting more ultimate? Or
Let's see. It'd be in a minute. You're looking at 10 procs to 12 procs. So
yeah, it's a 96 ultimate to 140 ultimate.
okay.
So it is less ultimate, but at the same time, compared to somebody who doesn't have the set, you're gonna get your ulti. If you have the same
Right.
ultimate quantity, then yeah, you're gonna get yours first for sure.
Well, I
Yeah.
think another thing to go to speak on that too, though, is that where that 5 seconds could be another a benefit is, a lot of ultimate builds you run the decisive trait, and this kind of leads to more of that is that now you're getting more procs out of that decisive trait as well. I don't know the
Yeah.
math on that off the top of my head, but
Me and Davies are going to start our buff decisive campaign here pretty soon, so
I
get
love the
ready for
decisive
that.
trait. I
Yeah.
use it on my ultimate builds, and it does pay off. If you double and focus into ultimate and double down on ultimate, then that decisive can very much pay off.
Yeah. The only other one I wanted to mention, we actually already mentioned it earlier, but I'll mention it again now. Troll King getting nerfed, so when it procs, your health recovery is going to get increased by 925 instead of 1548. Probably a good thing. I love this set. I like it a lot, and I always have known in my mind the day is going to come when Troll King gets nerfed. It's too strong. People complain about it all the time. So we knew it was coming, and it's here. So, what do we think? What do you guys think?
I think 1,000 for from 15 to 1,000. I think 1,000 is a solid number. Like
Yeah.
that's probably where it should have been
Yeah.
from before.
I think you're right. Totally. And
Still
also
think
keep in mind
it
that this
can
is
be
a buff
good.
that you can give to all of your nearby allies as well.
Yeah.
So considering that, it seems like a reasonable number.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's still viable. I was gonna mention a couple other sets just real quickly.
All right.
Chokethorn and Earthgore. Chokethorn's really just kind of overall getting a buff, and it's already a good set, and so it's just a longer heal and a stronger heal. Proc chance goes up, but Earthgore is. I like these changes. I don't know. We'll have to see with the crazy damage happening. But I like the idea that they're switching away from this is just like it's a reset button real quick that it's like a extra life almost, whereas now it's actually like a sustained, this is going to help you throughout a fight. I
Yeah.
like the idea that it's going that way instead of one quick burst to just cancel out someone's combo. Now it's just kind of, this is going to help you try to survive through an actual fight. I feel like I like that style better.
I think the people who are really reliant on Troll King that are maybe looking for alternatives are probably going to go to this now. That lower cooldown makes it a lot more attractive. Yeah, I like that. I like that change to Earthcore, and it's not so much. Yeah, like you said, like it's not such a like BS moment. Like when someone gets the Earthgore, it's like, man, this person was dead. All right,
Yeah.
this person was like a fraction of an inch from death, and now they're full of health. I hate this game.
Yeah, and their monster set is, the clock is ticking now until it's ready to go again. I got to burn them down before it's off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so now it seems like it's actually still very strong, very useful, good utility. It's not like you're unkillable when it's procced, but it's still pretty strong. And yeah, the cooldown is a lot more reasonable. So yeah, we're probably going to see a lot more of this set, I imagine. Okay, any other monster sets we want to talk about?
I was just gonna make quick going back to Chokethorn for a little bit. I think that we're also gonna see a little bit more Chokethorn. It is reducing the beam from 28 meters to 15 meters, but I think that's reasonable. I think the 28-meter beam was pretty ridiculous.
I always would chuckle when I saw the beam stretch that far because it always seemed like it shouldn't reach that far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it just told me I just follow it back to the source and then bash.
Yeah.
I'm like, that you're not going to get healed by that.
Okay, well, if there's no more monster sets we want to talk about, we'll move on to arena weapons. I had to go slow there just to give you guys an opportunity to speak up.
Oh, well, we'll take that opportunity.
Oh, okay.
I guess so the Alhambra set, that looks like it's getting buffed, so that might be pretty good.
Well,
because I know.
Well, Alhambris is an interesting one. It is getting changed. I didn't write this down, but I did kind of focus on that when I was reading the notes. So the amount of damage is being increased on the tooltip, but the thing is, Alhambris right now on live, it can deal flame or shock damage, but it both can proc at the same time. If you are dealing flame and shock damage in your build, you proc both of those storms simultaneously. So you're getting actually whatever the tooltip says there, you're getting double that from that set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a nerf.
Yeah, so it's actually a bit of a nerf.
For people that double bar Destro.
Yeah, but if you're all in, but now this enables you to use Alhambris and not have to have both damage types. You can just do fire or just do lightning. It's going to be equally effective either way.
Right.
Yeah, so I guess for that trade-off, because they double the damage and then also they increase the proc chance. So
yeah, there is that too.
Yeah. I think that outweighs the layering that people were doing.
Maybe so. And I almost now want to do like a DPS test like right now and then do another one after the patch and compare. Or I guess I could get on PTS and do it. But I probably won't.
I think that helps those builds, though, that were double Destro to capitalize on that. Now they can actually run Destro Resto or Destro Sword and Board and be more.
Or do they could do Fire Staff on both bars for better single target damage, and they're not missing out anything from Alhambris.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. Any other monster sets? All right, we're moving on for real this time to arena weapons. So arena weapons are getting a little bit of attention. All arena weapons are being moved to this perfected, non-perfected system, the way like Black Rose Prison works. So now if you do if you do Maelstrom Arena on normal, you can get a Maelstrom Arena staff or a bow or whatever. And then you do it on veteran, and you'll get the perfected version of that. And the perfected version, like the Black Rose weapons, they'll just have an additional line of like maximum stamina or some basic stat like that. Super cool. I'm actually really excited about this. I've never really wanted to deal with the pain of grinding veteran Maelstrom Arena for those weapons, but I can definitely handle it normal, no big deal. And so I might be a lot more apt to go do that content to get a hold of these weapons now. And I think missing out on that perfected line of stat is probably not a big deal for me anyway. But there is a major sticking point with this, right? Which is, oh, sorry, I lost. I lost where. Oh yeah, the big sticking point is that. So if you already have these weapons, you've already done veteran Maelstrom Arena, and you have your Maelstrom staff. Well, when this patch goes live, it's going to be the non-perfected version of that staff. They're not going to automatically upgrade it to the perfected version. And this is coming straight from Brian Wheeler on the official forums. He made a post stating this exact thing, basically. So, people are kind of upset about that because it's like, well, the veteran the veteran mode awards the perfected version. I completed the veteran mode of this arena, so I earned the perfected version. Well, you're not gonna get
Crazy
it.
that
Not gonna
that's
get it.
crazy they're doing that. Which it's even crazier because, you know, jumping here a little bit, but like I think a great example of rewarding something that's already been done, like they're changing the vampire skill line, but if you've already leveled up the skill line and already leveled up the abilities, that's all carrying over. So that makes sense. And
Hmm.
that, but they're totally not using that method for here. I,
Yeah,
I feel like those both should go hand in hand, but it's like on this that you're just, yeah, that's
it
crazy
just
that
seems like a
that's
bonehead move. Like, why not just do it? Why not
yeah.
just give that to the people who have earned it? It's really
Yeah.
lame.
Especially the people that farmed it for the exact trait that they
Yeah,
wanted.
back before transmuting was a thing. Remember
Yeah.
that? Oh man,
Yeah.
the Dark
And
Ages.
so I think an easy fix for them, or an easy saving grace or save face on it, change some of the content in the arena a little bit, change
Sure.
some aspect of it,
If it's
and then you
more
can say,
difficult, yeah,
yeah, it's not the same content, you know.
yeah.
So
Or
Or
probably
just or
the best
just
thing
change your
is,
mind on it.
yeah, just that's what I was about to say. They're like,
right.
we have several weeks till this goes live, so just say, oh, you know what? It makes sense. Our bad. Okay, we're good.
And
So who knows? That
they
could
they
happen.
have that capability with, I mean, like I just said with the vampire, if they can carry over stuff that you've already earned, already done, like if they can do that with vampire, they should very much be able to do that with these weapons.
Certainly, certainly.
Yeah.
So, but that aside, I am like as someone who has none of these weapons. Uh, I'm happy about this because I'm probably actually just going to go do the normal versions of this stuff and get my hands on some of these cool. Like I've been wanting to get a master bow for a long time, and I think I'm probably actually going to finally get one now. So yeah, aside from that whole debacle, this is a pretty cool thing.
Hmm.
Um, again, too much to cover now to go over all the different arena weapons, but I did want to point out the Spectral Cloak, aka Black Rose Dual Wield, finally getting its long, long overdue nerf. This is something that probably every longtime PvP player has been begging for since forever. Why does this item exist? Oh my god. It's basically just a hard carry set. So currently on live, what this Spectral Cloak weapon set does is it alters the ability Blade Cloak, which is a dual wield ability. So whenever you cast Blade Cloak, it grants you major protection for 3 seconds, and that reduces your damage taken by 30%. The thing is, major protection is an incredibly powerful buff, and if you use it right, you literally cannot die when you have this buff up. And just being able to press a button anytime you want, and boom, major protection. 3 seconds are up, boom, major protection again. Just push a button, you have it again. Plus, Blade Cloak gives you it can give you major expedition. It gives you evasion. It does AOE damage. It's already doing a whole lot. It was just too much. You put dual wield, Black Rose dual wield on your back bar, and I saw a forum commenter once say the game basically plays itself at that point. So I think people are probably pretty happy about this. Now they're changing it so that it increases your damage done and reduces your damage taken by 10% for 2 seconds when dealing damage with Blade Cloak. And Blade Cloak does damage every 2 seconds, so this gets constantly refreshed. Um, so an extra 10% damage done, I think, is pretty good. People go out of their way to get Minor Berserk, which is 8% damage done. And this is a unique buff that can stack with Minor Berserk. And an additional 10% bonus damage mitigation that can stack with Minor Protection. Really, really nice. So still a super great, super useful item to use, but I don't think it's OP anymore. Any thoughts?
I agree on
Yeah,
all of that.
All right,
I
we
think it's a
agree.
good
Moving
change all
on. All
around.
right. Yeah, I mean, I think they did a great job. They didn't nerf it too much. An extra 10% damage and damage mitigation. that's not a not a named bonus. It's a unique buff that can stack with whatever else you want to throw in there. I think that's awesome. I think it's really, really good. So okay, I think that's all of the armor sets that we're going to talk about. There's a few other things that I want to cover before we close this thing out. There's some new alchemy ingredients that you're going to be able to get with this expansion. They're called Crimson Nirnroot, Vile Coagulant. Ew, no thanks. Chaurus Egg, Chaurus, Chaurus Egg. So these new reagents will carry the new trait of minor timidity, and that's basically the opposite of minor heroism, right? So minor heroism gives you ultimate. Minor timidity will consume your ultimate. So people are going to be making poisons out of this, putting it on their weapons, hitting you with it, and you're going to be losing ultimate, which is pretty wild. I don't know have players had a way of taking ultimate away from other players in the past? Not that I know of.
I can't think of one.
So that's a new thing, a new like possible tactic or strategy. On the topic of alchemy, this one's pretty awesome for Nightblades. So stealth detection potions will now apply a visual effect over the person who uses the potion. So I don't know if you know this. If you haven't played much Nightblade before, if you're invisible and someone uses a stealth detect potion, they can totally see you, and you have no idea. Like your reticle, your little, the eye that closes when you go invisible, it still is telling you that you're invisible, and there's just zero indication. So you think you're safe, you're hiding out, you're making decisions based on that information, and it's false information. They can totally see you, and your primary form of defense just doesn't exist right now. So now you'll actually be able to tell if someone uses an invis reveal potion. You're going to see that icon above their head. You're going to know that they can see you, and you can make decisions accordingly based on that information. Awesome change.
That's the person you need to kill. I think they need to do that.
Just slid in there before your other statement. That's the person you need to kill.
Yeah. Basically, you just raised your hand and said, "It's me."
Yeah.
But I think they need to do something along those lines with mark target too, and whoever you're marked by, put that same reticle above their head.
I think that's a good idea too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, alchemy is surprisingly potent. These potions and poisons and stuff, it can be a whole other component to your build that can just make or break the whole thing. So I just wanted to mention those things because I think that's gonna have an effect on the meta.
I'm interested to see if people use the minor timidity.
I am too. I'm curious to see like how potent that's going to be. If people are going to find it worthwhile. I'm curious.
I mean, I think I might use it, but we could probably run some tests, like some dueling tests, and just see, like, compare it against someone who's got champion of Histon versus somebody who doesn't, and see how effective it is.
Well, and Icy, you have a PvP like utility build where you're just like providing buffs and debuffs all over the place. So it seems like something that could work well for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Seems like it'd be great for kind of the defile build.
Yeah, like a defile tank kind of thing.
Yeah, that would be perfect on those kind of builds.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, cool. So enchanting, we're getting some a new essence rune. It's called Indeko, Indeko. They say that this is bonus loot that you can get from the Antiquity System. So another incentive to get into the Antiquity System. And Davius alluded to this earlier. So you can use this rune to make 2 new types of jewelry glyphs. So this is Prismatic Recovery and Reduce Skill Cost. So I guess Prismatic Recovery, that's just going to be recovery for health, magicka, and stamina is my assumption. And reduce skill cost, I'm guessing that's going to reduce the cost of any active ability, whether it costs magicka, stamina, or health. I don't know for sure, but that's what it seems like.
Do you think it's going to be all the way, like reduce, roll dodge or block? Is it going to be just a passive reduce skill?
I bet it's just going to be active skills because we already have reduce feature cost, and that does reduce the cost of roll dodge and block and all that stuff, as well as stamina abilities. I think this one's going to be specifically active abilities. I don't know for sure. That's just me assuming. That's cool. I like new glyphs.
Yeah, I'm excited about the reduced skill costs. I mean, I've already kind of looked into that and thought about playing around the idea with that with um, some of the ultimate builds I have on what that would look like and how much is it going to reduce it. But
Hmm.
if you got an ultimate build and you're trying to get to that quicker, and then if you can even take that down even closer.
Oh yeah, yeah. I guess it would reduce ultimate cost too. Yeah.
So I'm interested in that one. And like I said earlier, I love the fact that it's in the new Antiquity System. Just more incentive to use that, and it just kind of rewards players that. I think it does a good job of kind of building up that maybe this Antiquity System is a little bit bigger than I originally thought it would be. I think it's going to be pretty important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're doing a good job of putting good enough incentives in it to drive
Yeah.
players to engage with it. Yeah. Um, this is where I put the crit resist changes, but we already kind of covered all that. I'll just kind of go over some numbers. The M-Pen armor trait is getting nerfed. So right now, each piece gives you 258 crit resist. They're dropping that down to 172. So if you have all 7 pieces of M-Pen armor, it's going to give you 1,204 crit resist. Whereas right now you would have 1,806 from a full set of M-Pen. But again, your character is going to have some base crit resist. I'm betting that's probably going to come out about even in the end, is going to be my assumption there, but I don't really know. Yeah, I think
It'll
we pretty
be
much already said it all about crit resist, right?
those changes will be interesting to see. I think Grim made this point earlier. If people, are we gonna see PvP builds go away from Impen? Are people
Yeah.
actually gonna start? Right now, if you're in PvP, if you don't have all Impen, then
But
good
yeah,
luck. But
like what if like that, what was that mythic ring that increases your damage by 25% and you can't crit? I can't remember the name. I don't want to scroll up, but
Malekith.
Malekith. What if that's just the meta? And everyone's running that thing, then M-Pen is absolutely not useful at all.
could be
If no
interesting.
one's critting on you, it's not doing anything. So it's interesting. Or if and at the same time, if everyone has all this penetration, your crit resistance is probably hardly going to matter then in either. So
It's just kind of wild to think about, like, divines or infused or well fitted. I know you do well fitted with impreg, but is it going to be a possibility to do well fitted with the non impregnable armor set?
Yeah, or like maybe just 3 M-Pen pieces and 3 well fitted, or
Well,
4
and then
infused or whatever.
now that we're going to have that base crit resist, what's that going to do?
Hmm.
It's
Yeah,
gonna be
what if it's
interesting.
1,000?
Yeah, if it's 1,000, it's going to be awesome, and it just opens up options, and maybe you have a certain critical resistance that you're kind of trying to target, and you can hit that with 1 or 2 M-Pen pieces, and then you can do all the rest of the pieces with something else. I really do like this change, and in general, they really are giving a lot of new build possibilities and stuff. I think it's cool.
How much crit resistance would be enough where you say that I don't need to run Impreg anymore? Like, would it be 1,000, or would they make it like a Munda Stone and you just go like 250?
Like, like for me to not run the M-Pen trait at all,
Yeah, yeah.
I think I would have to have a minimum of maybe 1,500 at least.
That's what I aim for on my builds, between 1,500 and 2,000.
Yeah.
I feel
then,
good.
Well, then I mean, I'm not even talking about champion points either. You can pile on the champion points too, but before champion points, I'd want to have about 1,500.
Okay.
I think. But again, I play a very avoidance type of play style. I very much kite in line of sight, so I'm not actually taking a lot of damage most of the time. All right, so we'll move on now, and we're going to talk about just a little bit about these vampire and werewolf changes. Of course, vampire is the big change that's happening, but there's also some really significant werewolf stuff happening too. And I'll just remind you guys, we're not diving deep into this stuff right now. We're going to wait for the live patch because a lot could change. But we're just going to just touch on it a little bit because it's exciting and it's cool. So Vampire, if you haven't heard, Vampire's getting a big rework. What's interesting is this actually has nothing to do with the expansion. It's just being released at that same time, but you don't have to buy the expansion. This is a base game thing, so everybody's going to have access to this new vampire stuff, which is kind of interesting. Like the incentive to buy the expansion. That this is kind of the thing that everyone's associating with this expansion, but it actually isn't part of the expansion at all. I think that's interesting. Um, Something I just want to straight up read the statement that they made in the patch notes because I think there's an interesting discussion here. They say blood magic, hit and run aggressiveness, stealth, and elusiveness are the primary gameplay concepts that define the combat experience. So, if we weren't talking about vampires, and I just read that sentence to you blood magic, hit and run aggressiveness, stealth, elusiveness you would assume I'm talking about a Nightblade, right? A Magicka Nightblade specifically because of the blood magic thing, right?
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
and I don't want to get on a big Nightblade lament here. And I don't think it's that big of a deal, but Nightblades have been complaining for several patches now that all of their class defining features are just being made readily available to everyone else that isn't a Nightblade, right? And there are examples of this. Fear being put into the Turn Evil Fighters Guild ability. Um, what else? I had another one that I was thinking of. There's the Grim Focus, like their Grim Focus ability. That mechanic is basically copy pasted onto the new Bound Armaments Sorcerer ability. It's basically the exact same mechanic. Now invisibility is being given to everyone, and this blood magic kind of concept, which is very much a Magic and Nightblade thing. Now, I tested Vampire, and really, I don't think they actually play anything like a Nightblade mechanically, but the theme and feel and vibe very much emulates a Nightblade, and that identity that defines them. It's just being diluted. It seems with every passing patch, and at the same time, they keep getting nerf after nerf after nerf. So they're actually just a lot weaker than they used to be at the same time. It just kind of, it's hard not to feel sorry for Nightblades right now.
I don't want them to. I want them to remove the ability increase
Yes.
From vampires, because by adding that, they're forcing you into abilities on the vampire skill line, and I don't think that they should do that. Like
I agree with you.
It's really forcing your hand.
The one thing I'll say about that, because I've thought about that too, and I've kind of looked into this more, is that that might not be as bad as we're initially thinking, because I think I think what we're all doing is we're looking at stage 4 and looking and being like, man, that's just such a massive increase. But with the way they're changing the vampire stages, I can see a lot of people running vampire and still not going all into vampire, but maybe they just stay in stage 1 or stay in stage 2 and they don't go all the way to stage 4, because you're still getting bonuses. But I think the stages become much, much more important now, that you can pick which stage you're in and not have, like, if you want to use other abilities, then maybe you only go stage 2 and don't go past that.
That's true. I guess along those lines too, if you're going to give us a plus 20% increase to regular abilities, but you're also giving us a minus 20% to vampire abilities, doesn't it kind of offset itself anyways, as long as you're running a good balance? True. So it ends up being the same. Like, I'm not going to be able to spam Breath of Life, or we're dead in the water. But
Davis had made a good point. I think we were talking about this like a week or so ago. But there are classes that have abilities that are free to cast, and so like a necromancer with all the tethers and stuff, and they have the cleanse that costs health. So you could really try to put a build together that, like, okay, all my vampire abilities are being reduced by 20%, and all my class abilities are freaking free. So I'm all set.
Yeah.
I really am excited to get my hands on this, because I'm trying to work on a build where I've already made the necro vampire. I I've already got the Vampire Lord set. I'm really excited to tinker with this, and and the idea I have, and I have no idea if it'll actually work right now, but I'm really excited to. The build would be to use actual health as the main resource for the build, because there's so many health costing abilities. You can focus on the free abilities from Necro, the health costing, and essentially for sustain is just I would focus a lot on health recovery
Yeah.
instead of magic or stamina recovery.
Check out the
So
new
I'm
organ
excited.
scales.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what that what the possibilities are there.
Yeah.
The new Amber Plasm with
Yep.
health regen.
Yeah, that would be really cool. In general, I think it's the concept that they're going for with the vampire stuff is neat. The whole idea, like you're trading your survivability for a lot of damage. You're highly incentivized to be very aggressive, very on the move all the time. Um, it's cool. I think I agree with Grim. I don't like the fact that automatically every non-vampire ability now costs more. I don't like anything that kind of encourages all the builds to be the same, and I feel like most vampires are just going to have identical front bars because of that. Um, but I do think it's a neat idea. I hope they rethink that. Something tells me they're not going to. But in general, I like what they're going for here. Um, and something I noticed too, a lot of people have been concerned about this ability to turn invisible after sprinting for 3 seconds. My mind is put a little bit at ease because I tested this out. The moment you stop sprinting, you're no longer invisible. So
What
it's,
about proximity to? Does your sneak value, I guess, affect if I run by an NPC? Will it pull me out of stealth?
I didn't try that. I was just like on an empty road when I was messing with it. I assumed that they would pull you out of stealth, but I really don't know.
So
I
your
wonder if it
leisure
works like
main,
cloak, more like cloak.
right, right. I'm interested to see that aspect of it.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean that made me because I was worried that like, okay, is everyone a ganker now? Like if I can just sprint for 3 seconds, now I'm invisible, and I'm a Templar, and I'm
Yeah.
just going to gank someone out of stealth, and boom, they're dead. It looks like that's actually not actually going to be possible. You'll be invisible as long as you're sprinting, but the moment you let your finger off that sprint button, you're visible again.
So you just sprint right up to them to where you could whisper over their shoulder.
Yeah. Well, there's a vampirism passive that gives you, I think, like 600 spell damage for like 6 seconds after leaving invisibility. So, you're being fast and aggressive, and you're like appear out of invisibility, and you have all this power to hopefully take them out.
Yeah. Another aspect of it too is I really like the Scion ultimate, and I think that adds to build diversity. If you say Templar, you could drop the Scion ultimate on a Templar and give it a different feel, a different look. Now I have this like tanky ultimate I can go to, and like with Necromancer, you can go to your your Bone Goliath
Uh-huh.
and out tank some people.
Yeah.
Like now a Nightblade, a Magic and Nightblade now has a tanky Goliath type option, Scion,
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of cool. I was thinking about that. Do I want to put that on a Necromancer who already has Bone Goliath, or do I want to put it on another build
Yeah.
that is missing that aspect?
Yeah. That's a good point. It's a cool thing, and I almost don't want to mention this because I want to save it for next episode, but I'll mention it anyway. The Blood Scion, the fact that it gives you the ability to see people through walls, freaking cool, man. I think it's really neat.
Very cool.
Yeah. All right. I think that's about all we should talk about for Vampire right now. I want to save the juicy stuff for next time. We're going to touch a little bit on Werewolf as well. And I think I'm going to let Grim talk mostly about this one just because I think of all of us, Grim is the one that has by far the most werewolf experience. So, Grim, do you want to just tell us a little bit about kind of some of the struggles werewolves deal with right now and just give us a general idea of what's being done to address that?
Yeah, I think they're doing a good job with Werewolf here, and it was much needed. I think it's perfect timing that they're doing it too. You're going to give Vampire a complete overall, and Werewolf's been struggling. The reason Werewolf's been struggling is because you can buff up and then go into Werewolf, and while your buffs are active, you might be okay. But as soon as your buffs fall off, you have no way to reapply those buffs, and so they're addressing that and basically just giving you major brutality, major berserk, minor courage, and some damage mitigation. They're giving you a lot more tools and better options. But the overall to werewolf, I think I'm really interested in turning out some werewolf builds, and I think that if a werewolf is built properly and you run into one in open field in PvP, you might want to run.
Yeah, it should
So
be. It should be like a terrifying experience, right? Like this savage beast is like ripping me to shreds with his bare claws. Holy crap!
yeah. So I'm all for all the werewolf changes that they're bringing, and I think that they could potentially be demigods running around.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, just for having like werewolf abilities slotted, you're gonna get your standard like major brutality and savagery buffs. Just like standard damage buffs. Reliable access to major berserk, which I think is maybe ought to be rethought there. Honestly,
hmm
um, like Grim said, they get a minor courage buff. If you use, I think it's if you use the pack leader morph, you just have minor courage at all times, which is just a flat 129 spell and weapon damage buff. But the thing is, it applies that to yourself and up to 11 allies at all times. So I think, you know, trial groups are going to be bringing a werewolf along. Like, I mean, I don't know for sure if that's going to be the case, like if the meta is going to shake out that way, but it seems like that's the intention here to give raid groups a reason to bring a werewolf along, right? I mean, does that seem that way to you guys?
Yeah.
It's cool.
I think that, and I don't think it's changing, but werewolves also have that passive that reduces for every werewolf in the group. It reduces uh, their cost of werewolf. Can't remember the exact numbers on it, but
I think it's like 10% per werewolf in the group.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
Oh,
reduces the cost of remaining in your werewolf transformation by 20%
oh,
for
I
each
didn't realize that was a thing.
yeah, for each transformed werewolf in your group, including
Cool.
yourself, up to a maximum of
I
80%.
had
So
no
I
idea
just
that
think,
was a thing. So they really want you to do that wolf pack thing.
yeah, they really
Yeah.
want you to have this group of werewolf. I think that's such a cool,
I've
that's
never
just
made
such
a
a cool
werewolf
piece.
before. That's why I wanted Grim to talk about it. He's like, I don't know,
Yeah.
werewolf.
The thing I'm scared about is like what you were talking about, access at the touch of a button to major berserk,
Yeah.
which is a 25% damage increase.
Yeah, put that
And
mythic ring on as well and have
yeah, you
fun.
put Malekith's band on, and that's
Yeah.
25 damage too. Now they need to, for that very reason, Malekith's band needs to be reworded to, increase your,
Hmm.
grant you major berserk.
Name it Major
Um,
Berserk.
yeah, you cannot deal critical damage. That's how Malekith's
Just
banned.
yeah,
Otherwise,
permanent Major Berserk, no crit. I actually think that's a great idea.
yeah, otherwise you're going to be able to, on a werewolf with Malekith's band, look out. And as quick as you can light attack people, like,
Or hit a like a sorcerer atronach synergy. Doesn't that give you Major Berserk as well?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So I just picture, my Kratos build running around with Malekith's band and major berserk access and, werewolves with major berserk the damage in this upcoming meta is going to be off the charts.
Yeah, it really
I,
is.
I'm interested to see, you don't really see it on the stats page anywhere, but werewolves always kind of have, the big kind of unspoken negative in werewolves and PvP is that when there's a werewolf, you see them over every other player. It's almost like they put a giant target above their head.
They're
And
easy to
so,
focus.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't know, I wonder if some of these changes are to, not that it's so PvP focused, but I'm interested to see if because that is a huge negative in PvP. So it seems logical that you should receive some kind of extra buff to make up for this giant target on your back.
Yeah.
Yeah. not only do you have a target on your back, but you have an increased damage from poisons.
Yep.
And a stamina nightblade will absolutely eat your face if you're a werewolf. Like, they hit you super hard, and like, they'll delete you. And so, especially going into next patch when they're wearing Stuhns, but
Yeah. Somebody hit the Stuhn's hotkey.
yeah. So they needed it, but werewolf, if you build it right, man, I'm super excited. I have a werewolf build right now that I'm running around in Imperial City with, and he has 30k magicka, 40k health, and 50k stamina.
It's outrageous.
Crazy.
Yeah, those are silly stats, and it's like 4k weapon damage too. And so this upgrade is, or this bonuses to werewolf are gonna make him really scary. So
Yeah, Kat, make sure to edit that out so we can keep this little secret to ourselves.
All right. We'll take the werewolf part out. Yeah, so vampires were pretty cool, right? All right, so we're gonna move.
yeah, nothing else happening.
Nothing to see here.
I do one last thing on werewolves. It's cool that they are giving werewolves a little bit of attention this patch. We knew it was going to be a vampire focused thing, and vampires and werewolves just kind of tend to go together, just in general. So it's cool that werewolves are getting a little love at the same time. And I think you're right. I think they're going to be truly formidable.
Yeah, scary.
Yeah. We're about to the end. Anything else you guys want to mention before we wrap this thing up?
I'm excited about the new change. I mean, overall, I'm very excited. Prime time for Nords. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be our time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stuhns.
Nords shall rise.
Yeah. Should we all just say Stuhns a whole bunch?
Yeah. Stuhns 2020.
I'm gonna rename this the Stuhns cast. That's what. You just know there's going to be some like goofy like character names out there with the word Stuhns in there, like Stuhns my goons or whatever. All right,
Cat's literally making that character right now.
Writing that down. Man, we have been talking for a long time. Man, I didn't realize how much time had passed. Man, this has been awesome. Honestly, I got to say this has gone a lot more smoothly than even I was expecting, and I was expecting it to go well. So I appreciate you guys being here. This has been awesome. We'll say our farewells here. So Grim, if people would like to contact you or get a hold of you in some way, how should they do that?
Yeah, Grim's Forge Gaming on YouTube, and I do build videos and battlegrounds footage and stuff like that. And then I also have been doing, like I did an Imperial City kind of beginner's guide to show people how to make money down there and little
useful
tips
stuff.
and tricks.
Also show you the super secret information of how to leave Imperial City. That's the hardest part the first time you visit there.
Yeah, the exit. Literally, I'll be down there, and if you're down there for an hour, at least one or two people say, "How do I get out of here?"
Yeah, I saw one yesterday actually.
Yeah, and or you can hit me up at Grim's Forge. That's actually my name in game, and I spend a lot of time down in the servers. So if you see me, say hey.
Very cool, man. I appreciate you being here. Davius Starjumper, pleasure to have you as well. Anything to say before we head out of here?
Everybody go out there, make your Nord character now. Be prepared for this upcoming expansion. Just go ahead and get it made. Let's make it happen.
Yeah. We're gonna have Harrow Storms and we're gonna have Nord Storms.
That's right. In all seriousness, this has been awesome, and thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for being here, dude. Honestly, I agree. It's been awesome. And Icy, happy to have you here as well, dude. Anything to say before we go?
I appreciate the invitation. It was first podcast I've been on ever, so I'm glad I finally
made
the
it.
celebrity mark by not providing any actual content on my own, like on my channel or anything. But I guess same thing what Grim was saying. If anybody wants to find me at ICFire369 in game, Otherwise, thanks for having me.
Yeah, totally, man. I appreciate your perspective, man. Like I was saying when we introduced you, you haven't been playing all that long, but you have already absorbed so much, and I think already have a lot of, valid thoughts and opinions of your own, and I always like hearing what you have to say about things, man.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Thanks.
Cool. Well, guys, I think that's it. I think we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for being here.
All right, thank you. You're awesome,
Thank
Kevin.
you.
All right. Okay, it's over.
Winter's Respite, that should
Yeah.
be 20 seconds. I'm telling you, it should be 20 seconds.